What happens when your family betrays you and you're forced to reclaim everything you thought was yours? Grace Collins thought she had it all figured out. After losing her mother, she inherited her family bakery and the house that was a symbol of love and legacy. But returning home from college to find that everything had changed her father and stepmother, now claiming the house as theirs, shattered her world. Now, Grace faces a tough decision. Will she let the lies and betrayals define her? Or will she take control and rebuild everything from the ground up? Stay tuned to find out how Grace takes back what's rightfully hers. And don't forget to subscribe for more empowering stories. My name is Grace Collins, and I'm 25 years old. Recently, I graduated from the University of California with a degree in fine arts. Life as a fresh graduate has its challenges, but my story is more than just the usual struggles of adulthood. It's about legacy, betrayal, and the strength I had to find when everything seemed to fall apart. Growing up, my mother, Rose Collins, was the pillar of my world. A talented chef and business owner, she was more than just an incredible cook. She was a meticulous planner, someone who built her life with purpose. She made sure I always had a safety net, a sense of stability that would carry me through any storm. Even before her cancer diagnosis, she had secured our futures. One of her most cherished accomplishments was the family bakery, a business she built from scratch, pouring everything she had into its success. When she passed away 4 years ago, she left me the bakery, a piece of her that would never fade. "Grace, this bakery is more than just a business," she would say. "It's our home, our roots. You'll always have a place to call yours." Even in the final stages of her illness, her focus was on preparing me for life without her. She taught me everything I needed to know about the business, from managing staff to handling suppliers. Her foresight, her preparation, was her final act of love, and it's something I carry with me every day. But life wasn't always easy. My parents' marriage lasted a decade before everything fell apart. I was just a child when my father, Walter Collins, decided to leave us for someone else. There were no dramatic fights, no courtroom battles, just a quiet goodbye. He moved on quickly, marrying Brittany, a younger woman who seemed to slide effortlessly into the role of wife and mother. Their daughter Lily came soon after, and though I visited occasionally, I never quite fit into their new family. Brittany was always polite but distant, the kind of stepmother who made you feel like an outsider in your own home. "Grace, would you like to stay for dinner?" she would ask, her tone barely masking the hope that I'd decline. Meanwhile, Dad worked long hours, claiming he needed to provide for his family, except, it seemed, that didn't include me. Lily, my half-sister, was 10 years younger and the apple of their eye. I watched as Brittany fussed over her, braiding her hair, praising her every accomplishment, and it was hard not to feel like I didn't belong. Despite the distance, my relationship with my father remained cordial. He paid for my college education in a lump sum, perhaps out of guilt or obligation. It was his way of staying involved without truly being present. I accepted it without question, thinking it was the best I could expect from him. Little did I know that my mother's thoughtful plans, combined with my father's hidden motives, would soon set the stage for a storm I never saw coming. Losing my mother was the hardest thing I've ever faced. Rose Collins wasn't just my mom, she was my anchor, my cheerleader, the one person who made me feel like I could conquer the world. When she passed away from cancer 4 years ago, just weeks before I was supposed to leave for college, my entire world shattered. The grief was suffocating. It felt like a piece of me was ripped away, and for a long time, I couldn't even get out of bed. In those first few weeks, I was numb. I could barely process the fact that she was gone. That's when my father, Walter Collins, stepped in. In a way I hadn't expected, he, along with Brittany and Lily, temporarily moved into the house to support me. At the time, I was too overwhelmed by the loss to question it. I was just grateful for the presence of people, anyone, even if our relationships had always been strained. "We're here for you, Grace," my dad said, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Brittany nodded in agreement, her face carefully arranged to look sympathetic. Even Lily, my half-sister, seemed to go out of her way to be kind, though her curious eyes wandered through the house, taking in every corner like it was a museum. At first, their presence brought some relief. Brittany took charge of organizing meals and keeping the house running, while Dad helped with the overwhelming paperwork that comes with losing a loved one. Lily would sit with me, chatting about school and her friends, offering small distractions from the crushing weight of my grief. It felt strange, but in those moments, almost comforting. As summer drew to a close and my college start date approached, I faced a difficult decision: what to do with the house. Selling it was unthinkable. It was my mother's legacy, the place she'd worked so hard to secure for us. But leaving it empty for 4 years didn't seem like a smart option either. That's when Dad came to me with a proposal. "Grace," he said one morning over coffee, "why don't we stay here while you're at school? We'll cover all the bills, maintain the place, and you won't have to worry about a thing." Brittany, flipping pancakes at the stove, chimed in, "It would be good for everyone. Lily loves her school here, and the house will be in great hands." At the time, it seemed like a practical solution. I agreed, grateful for the offer, and left for college with a sense that my mother's house and her memory would be cared for. College was a whirlwind of classes, assignments, and late-night study sessions, but coming home during breaks always felt like stepping into a different world. My visits were a comforting reminder of home, and over time, I started to notice something unexpected. The family dynamic at my mother's house was changing. When I came home for my first break, Brittany greeted me with a warm smile and a home-cooked meal. "Welcome back, Grace. I made lasagna, your favorite," she said, setting the table as if she'd always known my preferences. Lily, my half-sister, couldn't wait to drag me to her room to show off her latest artwork. "Look, Grace, do you think I should add more blue here?" she'd ask, her enthusiasm infectious. For the first time, she treated me like a sister rather than the distant relative who occasionally visited. As the years passed, these visits became more than just a chance to recharge. They started to feel like I was part of something bigger. During Christmas breaks, we'd decorate the tree together, arguing playfully over ornaments. "Tinsel is so tacky," Brittany would declare, while I'd laugh and insist it was classic. Dad would lift Lily to place the star on top, grinning as if this was the family he'd always envisioned. Those moments felt warm and genuine, almost like we were truly a family. Summer breaks were longer, slower, and more relaxed than I ever remembered. Lily and I spent lazy afternoons at the community pool, the sun warming our skin as we floated in the water. Or we binge-watched movies while munching on popcorn. Brittany surprised me by inviting me to her book club, and we bonded over dissecting romance novels, laughing at the absurd plot twists. "Grace's insights are spot on," Brittany said one evening, her voice filled with sincerity. It was a small compliment, but it made me feel included in a way I hadn't expected. Even Dad, always reserved, seemed to soften. He would join us for dinner, ask about my classes, and seem genuinely interested in my life. "Your mom would be so proud of you," he said one evening, his voice thick with emotion. It was in moments like those that I realized I wasn't just a guest anymore, I was part of the family. As time passed, I began to see Brittany and Lily in a new light. Brittany, who had once felt cold and distant, now took on a maternal role. She always asked about my day, my goals, making sure I felt like I belonged. Lily, with her youthful energy and non-stop chatter, filled the house with life, and her habit of seeking my advice made me feel like an older sister for the first time. The house itself had changed too. Subtle touches of Brittany's influence appeared: new curtains, a carefully arranged centerpiece on the dining table, but they were tasteful, blending with the warmth my mother had always nurtured. It felt as though we were building something together, something that honored the past but embraced the present. By the time I graduated, I genuinely believed we had created a strange but functional family dynamic. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. I never imagined how fragile it all was, how quickly the foundation we built could crack under the weight of hidden truths. Graduating from college felt like the beginning of something new, a fresh chapter. 4 years of late nights, hard work, and dreams about my future had finally paid off. With my degree in hand, I had secured a job at a local firm back in my hometown, and the thought of returning to the house I had grown up in filled me with comfort and excitement. My mother's house, my house, was waiting for me, a place where I could settle down and begin to build my career. The June afternoon I arrived back home was bright and warm, the kind of day that fills you with optimism. As the taxi pulled up to the driveway, I smiled at the familiar sight of the house. The garden was well maintained, though the roses my mom had once lovingly tended seemed slightly different. The house felt the same, yet there were subtle changes. Brittany had made her mark over the years, new curtains, a fresh coat of paint on the shutters. Everything looked welcoming, and I couldn't wait to step inside and claim my room once again. Dragging my suitcases up the front walk, I reached for my keys, eager to enter the home that had always been a safe haven. But when I slid the key into the lock, it wouldn't turn. I frowned, tried again, jiggling the key slightly. Still nothing. Confused, I muttered under my breath, "What the hell?" and knocked loudly on the door. Surely it was just a mistake, maybe a new lock had been installed, and no one thought to give me a spare. A moment later, the door opened. Brittany stood there, her expression shifting from surprise to discomfort in an instant. She was wearing an apron dusted with flour, as if she'd been baking. "Grace," she said, her voice hesitant. "What are you doing here?" I wheeled my suitcase into the entryway, ignoring the awkwardness in her tone. "What do you mean?" "I live here," I replied, my eyes scanning the living room, which looked subtly different from how I'd left it. New furniture arrangements, a different rug, nothing too drastic, but everything felt off. "Why were the locks changed?" Before Brittany could answer, Dad appeared from the living room, his face pale and movements stiff. Lily trailed behind him, looking nervous but staying silent. "Grace," Dad began, rubbing the back of his neck, a telltale sign he was uncomfortable. "Let's talk in the office for a minute." Alarm bells started ringing in my head as I followed him to the small office that used to belong to my mom. The walls were still lined with her books and certificates, but the air felt heavy, as if the room itself knew what was coming. Dad closed the door behind us and turned to face me, his hands shaking slightly. "Grace," he started, his voice low. "There's something I need to tell you." He paused, and I could see the weight of his words pressing down on him. Brittany thinks this house belongs to me." I stared at him, uncomprehending. "What are you talking about? Mom left this house to me. It's in her will." He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "I know that, but when we moved in, I told Brittany it was mine, that I'd given it to your mom out of kindness after the divorce, and that when she passed, it came back to me." The betrayal hit me like a punch to the gut. "You lied to her for 4 years? You let her believe this was your house, and now you're telling me that she doesn't even know it's mine?" Dad's shoulders slumped. "I didn't think it would matter. You were at college, and we needed a place to stay. I thought it would be temporary." Anger and disbelief surged through me. "Temporary? This is my house, Dad, Mom's house, and you're telling me you've been living here, letting Brittany act like it's hers, while you lied to her and to me?" "I was going to tell her the truth," he said weakly, but his words rang hollow. "Just give me some time to figure out how to handle this." I shook my head, furious. "You've already had 4 years, Dad." At that moment, Brittany knocked on the door, her voice sharp. "Is everything okay in there?" The tension was suffocating, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let them continue this charade. The first few days back in the house were awkward, but I tried to convince myself that things would get better. After the confrontation with my father, I chose to keep quiet for the time being, hoping he would resolve the situation as promised. But the atmosphere in the house shifted almost immediately, and Brittany's behavior quickly took a turn for the worse. It started with small things, comments that sounded polite on the surface but were laced with subtle jabs. "Grace, I reorganized the pantry for efficiency. You probably didn't notice since you've been so busy with college," she'd say, smiling too sweetly. Then there were the accidents. One morning, I found my favorite blouse in the laundry ruined with bright pink streaks. "Oh dear," Brittany exclaimed when I confronted her, her tone dripping with mock concern. "I must have mixed up the laundry baskets. These things happen when a house gets too crowded." Lily, who had once been eager to spend time with me, now seemed distant and aloof. She rolled her eyes whenever I entered the room and started referring to me as "that girl" during her loud phone conversations with friends. "Mom says it's weird you're still here," I overheard her whispering one evening. The word stung more than I expected. Brittany's passive-aggressive jabs soon turned into outright hostility. One evening, as I poured myself a cup of coffee, she cornered me in the kitchen, arms crossed and her expression icy. "Grace, have you thought about getting your own place?" she asked, her tone casual but her words pointed. "You're starting a new job soon. It's time to think about living independently. You're a grown woman after all." I clenched the mug in my hands, forcing myself to stay calm. "Actually, I've talked to Dad about staying here for a while. He's fine with it." Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment I thought she might argue. Instead, she turned and left the kitchen without another word, but her actions spoke louder than anything she could have said. The next morning, I woke up to find the living room rearranged, my mother's favorite vase shoved into a dusty corner shelf. "It didn't match the new aesthetic," Brittany said when I confronted her, her tone too casual, like it was nothing. My frustration simmered beneath the surface, but I bit my tongue, knowing that any argument would only make things worse. The tension in the house was suffocating. Brittany had made it clear I wasn't welcome, and Lily followed her lead, treating me with open disdain. Even Dad, who had always been my safety net, seemed distant. He avoided my gaze, his face drawn with tension. He left early each morning, claiming work obligations, but I could tell he was avoiding me. I was becoming a stranger in my own home. Family dinners, once a comforting routine, turned into a battlefield. Subtle digs, uncomfortable silences. Brittany would cook just enough food for 3 people, then feign surprise when I joined them at the table. "Oh, I didn't think you'd be here for dinner," she would say, her tone light, but her eyes cold as ice. Lily giggled at her mother's remarks, and Dad would sit quietly as though he were invisible, avoiding confrontation at all costs. As the days passed, the isolation wore on me. I retreated to my room more often, trying to avoid the hostility that seemed to follow me around the house. But even there, I couldn't escape the suffocating sense of betrayal. This wasn't just about Brittany anymore. It was about my father, the man who had always stood by, silently complicit as his wife chipped away at my sense of belonging. I tried to focus on my new job, reconnecting with old friends, anything to distract myself, but the weight of the tension in the house was inescapable. Each day, the cracks in our fragile family dynamic grew deeper, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being pushed out of my own life. Saturday morning arrived unusually quiet. No sounds of Brittany's weekend baking in the kitchen, no music blaring from Lily's room, no faint murmur of the TV where Dad usually watched sports. The silence was unsettling, like the house itself was holding its breath. I slipped out of bed and padded downstairs, calling out softly, "Hello? Brittany? Dad?" But there was no response. The kitchen was spotless, unused since the night before. The living room was untouched, throw pillows arranged perfectly on the couch. Even the usual clutter by the entryway, Lily's shoes, Brittany's handbag, was gone. A quick glance outside confirmed it. Dad's car wasn't in the driveway. Confused, I checked my phone, expecting a text or note explaining their absence. But there was nothing. I dialed Dad's number, but it went straight to voicemail. Frowning, I tried again a few more times before reluctantly calling Brittany. She picked up on the 4th ring, her voice sharp and impatient. "What do you want, Grace?" she snapped, the sound of waves and tropical music faint in the background. "I just wanted to know where everyone is," I said, caught off guard by her tone. "I woke up and the house was empty." She laughed, but it wasn't the warm laugh I had grown used to. It was cruel, cutting. "Oh, didn't we tell you? We're in the Maldives. First-class flights, luxury resort, the works." Her voice dripped with mockery. "We didn't mention it because, frankly, we didn't want you tagging along and expecting us to pay for you." "What?" I stammered, my disbelief mixing with anger. "Brittany, what are you talking about? You left without saying anything." "Save it," she cut me off coldly. "I'm done with this whole situation. You're nothing but a freeloader living in our house, mooching off us like you own the place. Your father might tolerate it, but I won't. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have a grown woman squatting in her own home?" Her words struck like a slap, but she wasn't finished. "When we get back, I want you gone. Pack your things and leave, Grace, and don't think you can guilt your father into letting you stay. He agrees with me. He's just too spineless to tell you himself. We've already blocked your number. Have a nice life." The line went dead before I could respond. For a long moment, I just stood there, the phone trembling in my hand. Her venomous words echoed in my mind, and the weight of the betrayal hit me like a tidal wave. I had been pushed out, discarded, rejected by the people I had always considered my family. And now, not only had they stolen my place in their lives, but they were also making it clear they didn't even care. But then, something inside me shifted. The sadness and disbelief gave way to anger, white-hot, focused anger. This was my house, my mother's house, and I was done playing nice. I spent the rest of the day packing their belongings with a determination I didn't know I had. Brittany's expensive clothes, Lily's school supplies, Dad's golf clubs, it all went into boxes and suitcases. I stacked them neatly in the garage, making sure not a single trace of them remained in the house. Every move felt cathartic, like I was reclaiming a piece of myself with each item I packed away. By evening, I had called a locksmith. "Can you change the locks immediately?" I asked, my voice firm. He arrived within the hour, replacing every lock in the house while I stood by, clutching the new keys like a lifeline. It cost a small fortune, but I didn't care. As I closed the door behind him, I felt a strange sense of relief. This was my house again, and no one was going to take it from me. Friday evening, I pulled into the driveway after a long day at work and immediately spotted their car. They were back. Brittany, Dad, and Lily stood near the front steps, surrounded by their suitcases and boxes from the garage. Brittany's face was flushed with fury, her hands gesturing wildly as she spoke to Dad. Lily hung back, scowling, while Dad wore his usual look of quiet discomfort. As soon as I stepped out of my car, Brittany's voice erupted. "How dare you change the locks?" she shouted, storming toward me. "This is our house! You have no right to lock us out!" I ignored her ranting, walking calmly past them toward the front door. Brittany followed close behind, her voice rising with every step. "This is breaking and entering. We're calling the police. You think you can just throw us out like we're nothing?" I stopped at the door, turned, and faced her. Something inside me felt calm, steady, even as her words spat like venom. "No, Brittany," I said firmly. "This isn't your house. It never was. This house belongs to me. My mother left it to me in her will. The only reason you've been living here is because I allowed it, and now I'm done." Her face twisted in disbelief. She turned to Dad, who stood frozen near the car. "Walter, tell her she's lying. Tell her this is our house," she demanded, her voice shrill. Dad looked like he wanted to melt into the pavement. He avoided my gaze as he shuffled uncomfortably, finally mumbling, "She's telling the truth." Brittany's fury boiled over. "You lied to me!" she shrieked, glaring at him. "You let me think this was your house, that you were doing us a favor by letting her stay. What else haven't you told me?" Her attention snapped back to me, her expression a mix of anger and desperation. "Grace, sweetheart," she began, her tone suddenly soft and saccharine. "We've had so many good times here, holiday dinners, book club nights. This is a family home. Surely we can work something out." "No," I said, cutting her off. "We can't. Your things are in the garage. Take them and leave." Brittany's mask cracked, her tone turning venomous again. "You ungrateful little... After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? You'd throw your own family out on the streets?" "You've never treated me like family," I shot back, my voice calm but firm. "And don't pretend this is about loyalty. You tried to steal my house, Brittany, my mother's house." Dad stepped forward, his voice trembling with desperation. "Grace, please. I know I've made mistakes, but we're family. We can figure this out. Just let us stay a little longer." I shook my head, locking eyes with him, my resolve hardening. "No, Dad. You lied to her. You lied to me. You let her erase every trace of Mom from this house while you stood by and said nothing. I won't let you keep doing this." Brittany tried one last time, her voice rising with a mix of anger and desperation. "You can't do this! We'll fight you on this, Grace!" I opened the door and stepped inside, turning to face them one last time. "You're welcome to try," I said, my voice calm, final. I closed the door firmly behind me. Through the window, I watched them argue as they packed the last of their things into the car. Brittany screamed, Lily cried, and Dad just stood there, defeated. As the car pulled away, something heavy lifted from my chest. The house was finally mine again. Truly mine. In the days that followed, the house felt oddly quiet, but the silence brought an unexpected peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells, bracing for Brittany's passive-aggressive comments. The space was mine again, and with it, a clarity I hadn't felt in so long. This wasn't just my mother's house anymore. It was my sanctuary, my fresh start. Cutting ties with my father and his family wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Dad tried reaching out, calling from new numbers and leaving voicemail after voicemail full of apologies and promises to fix things. I didn't answer. His words felt hollow, empty after everything he'd let happen. "I love you, Grace," he said in one message. "I was just trying to keep the peace." But peace built on lies isn't peace at all, and I wasn't willing to compromise my dignity for his comfort anymore. Brittany didn't even bother trying to contact me. She had made her feelings crystal clear. Lily's silence, though, stung more than I expected. But I reminded myself that she was still young, caught in the middle of decisions she had no control over. Even so, I knew it was better to let go of the toxic ties that had held me back for so long. With them gone, I turned my focus to rebuilding my life. The first step was reclaiming the house not just physically, but emotionally. I rearranged the furniture back to the way my mom had it, repainting the walls in soft, warm tones that reminded me of her. I replanted the rose bushes in the garden, choosing the same color she had loved. Each small change felt like a step toward honoring her memory, while making the space my own. Work became my anchor. My job at Marshall and Brooks Financial was challenging but fulfilling, and I threw myself into it wholeheartedly. My colleagues became friends, and for the first time, I felt like I was part of a community. Hazel, from the risk assessment team, became my confidant. Our lunch breaks were filled with laughter, planning, and talk of the future. But the most meaningful project I embarked on was restoring my mother's bakery, which had been closed since her passing. It took months of planning, late nights, and a lot of sweat, but eventually, the doors reopened. The first time I stepped behind the counter, the scent of fresh bread and pastries filled the air. I felt a surge of pride and connection to her. The bakery wasn't just a business, it was her legacy, and now it was mine to carry forward. In the quiet moments, I often thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the loss of the people I had once called family. But I didn't dwell on it with bitterness. Instead, I saw it as a chapter in my story, one that taught me the importance of boundaries, self-respect, and the power of starting over. Healing isn't linear, and it isn't easy, but standing in my mother's house, surrounded by the life I was rebuilding, I felt something I hadn't in years: hope. My mother had always believed in planning for the future, and now I understood why. She had given me the tools to stand on my own, even when the people I trusted most let me down. As I looked out at the garden, the roses blooming in the evening light, I knew I was ready to move forward. This house, this life, it was mine, and I would build it into something beautiful, for her, for me, and for the future she always wanted me to have. What do you do when the people you once called family betray you so deeply that even the home you grew up in becomes a battleground? When your father, the one person who should have protected you, chooses silence and lies over standing by you? Grace thought she had found peace after her mother's death, believing that her father and Brittany's family were finally starting to accept her. For years, they made it seem like a happy, functioning family, but the moment she returned home after graduation, everything shattered. She learned that the house she thought was hers, her mother's legacy, had been lied about, claimed by her father as his, and let Brittany assume it was hers. But Grace, with all her pain and betrayal, made a decision. She took back what was hers, not just the house, but her sense of self. She reclaimed the home her mother had worked so hard for, and with it, she reclaimed her life. No more lies, no more manipulation. And when Brittany tried to fight back, it was too late. The damage was done and Grace was done. Now, Grace is moving forward, starting fresh, focusing on her career and restoring her mother's bakery. She's healing not just from the loss of her family, but from the realization that family isn't always about blood. It's about respect, honesty, and the boundaries we set to protect ourselves. So here's the question. If you were in Grace's shoes, would you have walked away sooner, or would you have kept fighting for the family you once knew? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.
I stood in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing down my dress for the 100th time. The reflection staring back at me was a far cry from the scared, broken woman I'd been just a few years ago. Max's voice drifted up from downstairs, reminding me we'd be late if I didn't hurry. "Coming, honey," I called back, taking a deep breath. Tonight was important, our first dinner with his mother since we'd gotten married. I'd only met Marianne once before, at the wedding, and her piercing gaze had left me feeling like I'd been dissected. As I descended the stairs, Max's face lit up. "You look beautiful, Leah," he said, pulling me in for a kiss. I relaxed into his embrace, savoring the feeling of safety and love, something I'd never truly known before him. "Thanks," I murmured. "I just hope your mother approves." Max chuckled. "Don't worry about her. She'll love you once she gets to know you." If only I'd known then how wrong he was. The drive to Marianne's sprawling Victorian home was quiet, my stomach churning with nerves. As we pulled up, I noticed the meticulously manicured lawn and the gleaming Mercedes in the driveway. "Ready?" Max asked, squeezing my hand. I nodded, plastering on a smile, as I'll ever be. Marianne answered the door herself, perfectly coiffed and wearing a string of pearls that probably cost more than our car. "Maxwell, darling," she cooed, air-kissing his cheeks. Her gaze slid to me, and I swore the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "Leah, how? Nice to see you again." "Thank you for having us, Marianne," I said, willing my voice not to shake. She ushered us inside, and I marveled at the opulent decor. Family portraits lined the walls, generations of stern-faced men and women staring down at us. "Dinner's nearly ready," Marianne announced. "Maxwell, why don't you pour us some wine?" As Max headed to the bar cart, Marianne turned to me. "So, Leah," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "tell me about your family. What does your father do?" I swallowed hard. He works in construction. My mom's a teacher." Marianne's lips thinned. "How quaint. And you? What is it you do again?" "I'm a social worker," I replied, lifting my chin. "I help families in crisis." She laughed, a brittle sound. "Well, I suppose someone has to do it." Max returned with our drinks, oblivious to the tension. "What are we talking about?" "Oh, just getting to know your lovely wife better," Marianne said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "Did you know her father's in construction, dear? Isn't that fascinating?" I saw a flicker of discomfort cross Max's face, but he quickly covered it. "Leah's family is wonderful, Mother. You'd like them if you met them," Marianne hummed noncommittally. "Well, shall we eat?" Throughout dinner, Marianne peppered me with questions about my background, each one feeling like a subtle jab. I answered as politely as I could, but my patience was wearing thin. "So when can we expect some grandchildren?" Marianne asked suddenly, setting down her fork. I choked on my wine. "I'm sorry?" "Children, dear. Surely you two are planning on starting a family soon?" "Maxwell isn't getting any younger, you know." Max cleared his throat. "Mother, we've only been married a few months. There's plenty of time for that." Marianne's eyes narrowed. "Nonsense. The Caldwell name needs to be carried on. You do want children, don't you, Leah?" I felt trapped, all eyes on me. "We haven't really discussed it yet," I managed. "Well, you'd better get to it," Marianne said sharply. "A woman your age, fertility doesn't last forever." "Mother," Max warned, but the damage was done. I stood abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. "Excuse me," I muttered, fleeing to the bathroom. As I splashed cold water on my face, I stared at my reflection. What had I gotten myself into? Max had seemed so different from the men in my past, kind, supportive, loving. But now, faced with his mother's clear disdain, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. A soft knock at the door startled me. "Leah?" Max called. "Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It was time to have a serious talk with my husband about where we stood and what kind of future we really had together. The weeks following that disastrous dinner with Marianne were tense. Max and I tiptoed around each other, the elephant in the room growing larger by the day. I knew we needed to talk, but every time I tried to broach the subject, Max found an excuse to change the topic or leave the room. It all came to a head one Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry when Max's phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced over, not meaning to pry, but the name on the screen made my blood run cold. Mother. Before I could look away, the message preview popped up. Have you talked to Leah about children yet? Time is running out. My hands shook as I set down the shirt I'd been folding. Max, I called out, my voice sharper than I'd intended. He appeared in the doorway, a wary expression on his face. What's wrong? I pointed to his phone. Care to explain why your mother is texting you about our reproductive plans? Max's face paled. He snatched up the phone, quickly reading the message. Leah, I can explain. Please do, I said, crossing my arms. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you and your mother have been discussing our private life behind my back. He ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd come to recognize. It's not like that. She's just concerned. Concerned? I echoed incredulously. Max, she's obsessed. And you're enabling her. She means well, he protested weakly. She just wants us to be happy. I laughed. A bitter sound. Happy? You think pressuring me into having a baby I'm not ready for will make me happy? Max's expression hardened. And when will you be ready, Leah? We're not getting any younger. Don't you want a family? His words hit me like a slap. Of course I do, I said quietly, but on our terms, not your mother's. My mother has nothing to do with this, Max insisted, but I could see the lie in his eyes. Really? Then why is she texting you about it? Why are you discussing our personal decisions with her at all? Max's jaw clenched. She's family, Leah. She has a right to know. No, I cut him off. She doesn't. This is between you and me, or at least it should be. We stared at each other for a long moment, the gulf between us widening with each passing second. Finally, Max spoke, his voice low and dangerous. Maybe my mother's right. Maybe you're not the right person to carry on the Caldwell name after all. I recoiled as if he'd struck me. What's that supposed to mean? It means, he said slowly, that I'm starting to wonder if I made a mistake marrying someone so different from us. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt my world tilting on its axis, everything I thought I knew about my husband crumbling before my eyes. Get out, I whispered. Max blinked. What? Get out, I shouted, grabbing the nearest object, a framed photo of our wedding day, and hurling it at him. It shattered against the wall as he ducked. I need time to think, and I can't do that with you here. For a moment I thought he might argue, but then he nodded stiffly, grabbing his keys and wallet. I'll stay at my mother's tonight, he said. We can talk tomorrow when we've both calmed down. As the front door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, surrounded by the remnants of our broken picture frame. How had things gone so wrong so quickly? And more importantly, what was I going to do now? My phone buzzed, and I reached for it mechanically. A text from Marianne flashed across the screen. Max told me what happened. You're making a big mistake, dear. Come over tomorrow, and we'll sort this all out. I stared at the message, a cold fury building in my chest. No more playing nice, no more trying to please everyone. It was time to stand up for myself, even if it meant losing everything I thought I wanted. With shaking fingers, I typed out a reply. Stay out of my marriage, Marianne. This is your only warning. As I hit send, I knew I'd just declared war. And I had no idea if I was ready for the battle ahead. The weeks after my confrontation with Max were a blur of tense silences and forced politeness. We'd reached an uneasy truce, but the weight of unspoken words hung heavy between us. I knew we were both waiting for the other shoe to drop. It finally did on a crisp autumn morning. I was sipping my coffee when Max cleared his throat, setting down his newspaper with an air of forced casualness. Leah, he began, his voice carefully neutral. I've been thinking, maybe we should see a fertility specialist. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? Max leaned forward, his eyes earnest. It's been months, and we're not getting any younger. I just think it might be wise to explore our options. The unspoken pressure from Marianne hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I set my mug down with a sharp clank. Max, we agreed to wait. I'm not ready. When will you be ready? He interrupted, frustration seeping into his tone. We can't put this off forever, Leah. Don't you want a family? His words stung, but I forced myself to stay calm. Of course I do, but on our terms, not your mother's. Max's jaw clenched. This isn't about my mother. This is about us, our future. I laughed bitterly. Is it? Because it feels an awful lot like it's about appeasing Marianne and her obsession with continuing the Caldwell line. That's not fair, Max protested, but I could see the flicker of guilt in his eyes. Isn't it? I challenged. Then why the sudden urgency? Why can't we just let things happen naturally? Max ran a hand through his hair, a telltale sign of his agitation. Because we don't have the luxury of time. Look, I've already made an appointment with Dr. Reeves. She's the best fertility specialist in the city. I felt like I'd been slapped. You what? Without even discussing it with me first? I knew you'd react like this, Max said, his voice rising. That's why I didn't tell you. Sometimes, Leah, you need a little push. A push, I echoed incredulously. This isn't a push, Max. This is a shove off a cliff. We glared at each other across the kitchen table, the distance between us seeming to grow with each passing second. Finally, I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to remain steady. Fine, I said. I'll go to the appointment. Max's face lit up. Really? Leah, that's wonderful. I held up a hand, silencing him. I'm not finished. I'll go, but on one condition. Your mother stays out of this. Completely. No more discussions about our private life. No more helpful suggestions. This is between you and me. Agreed? Max hesitated, and I saw the struggle play out across his face. Finally, he nodded. Agreed. The appointment was set for the following week. As I sat in Dr. Reeves' sterile office, listening to her explain the battery of tests we'd need to undergo, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing control of my own life. Max, on the other hand, was practically vibrating with enthusiasm. He peppered the doctor with questions about success rates and treatment options, while I sat in numb silence. As we left the clinic, a wave of nausea hit me. I barely made it to a nearby trash can before emptying the contents of my stomach. Leah, Max exclaimed, rushing to my side. Are you all right? I wiped my mouth, a strange calm settling over me. I'm fine, I said. Just a bit of nerves, I guess. But as Max helped me to the car, chattering excitedly about next steps, a realization dawned on me. The nausea, the fatigue I'd been feeling lately, it couldn't be, could it? I placed a hand on my stomach, a mix of fear and wonder coursing through me. If I was right, everything was about to change, and I had no idea if I was ready for what was coming. As we pulled into our driveway, I turned to Max, my heart pounding. We need to talk, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I think I might be pregnant. The day of our 20-week ultrasound arrived with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Max and I had barely spoken about the pregnancy, tiptoeing around each other like strangers sharing a house. As we sat in the waiting room, I could feel the tension radiating off him in waves. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell? The technician called, her smile bright and oblivious to the undercurrent between us. We followed her into the dimly lit room, and I settled onto the exam table. Max stood awkwardly by my side, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. Are you ready to see your baby? The technician asked cheerfully. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As she spread the cold gel on my stomach, I reached for Max's hand out of habit. He hesitated for a moment before taking it, his grip loose and uncomfortable. The room filled with the rapid whoosh-whoosh of our baby's heartbeat. Despite everything, tears sprang to my eyes. That's our baby, I whispered, glancing at Max. His face was unreadable, eyes fixed on the grainy image on the screen. Is everything normal? He asked, his voice tight. The technician nodded, moving the wand across my belly. Everything looks perfect. Would you like to know the gender? I felt Max stiffen beside me. We hadn't discussed whether we wanted to find out, but suddenly I needed to know. Yes, I said firmly, squeezing Max's hand. We'd like to know. The technician smiled, adjusting the image. Congratulations, you're having a little girl. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. A girl. My daughter. I felt a surge of love so powerful it took my breath away, but Max's hand had gone limp in mine. I turned to look at him, and the expression on his face made my blood run cold. Disappointment, anger, maybe even disgust? A girl? He repeated, his voice flat. The technician, sensing the shift in mood, quickly wrapped up the appointment. As we left the clinic, the silence between us was deafening. In the car, I couldn't hold back anymore. Max, talk to me. What's going on? He gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. It's nothing. I I guess I was hoping for a boy. Hoping? Max, this is our child, our daughter. How can you be disappointed? He sighed heavily. You don't understand, Leah. In my family, the firstborn has always been a son. It's tradition. It's expected. I felt like I'd been slapped. Expected? By who? Your mother? Max's jaw clenched. This isn't about my mother. It's about carrying on the Caldwell name, the legacy. Stop the car, I said quietly. What? I said, stop the car! I shouted. Max pulled over and I fumbled with my seatbelt, desperate for air. As I stumbled out onto the sidewalk, Max called after me. Leah, where are you going? I whirled to face him, fury and heartbreak warring inside me. How dare you, I hissed. How dare you taint this moment, this miracle, with your outdated sexist expectations? This is our daughter, Max. A living, breathing part of both of us. And if you can't see how precious that is, then maybe we've made a terrible mistake. Max's face paled. Leah, you don't mean that. Come on, let's go home and talk about this. But I was already backing away, shaking my head. I can't go back to that house, not right now. I need time to think. As I turned and walked away, I heard Max call out behind me, his voice tinged with panic. But I didn't look back. My hand rested protectively on my stomach, where my daughter, my perfect, beautiful daughter, was growing. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that everything had changed. The life I thought I wanted, the future I had planned with Max, it was all crumbling around me. And as the first tears began to fall, I realized I had a choice to make, one that would determine not just my future, but my daughter's as well. I spent the night at my parents' house, ignoring the constant buzzing of my phone as Max tried to reach me. By morning, I felt hollowed out but resolute. I had to face this head-on. When I returned home, Max was waiting, his face a mask of concern and guilt. Leah, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean. I held up a hand, silencing him. We need to talk, but not now. Your mother's coming over, isn't she? Max nodded, looking sheepish. I told her about the baby. She insisted on coming. My stomach clenched, but I steeled myself. Fine, let's get this over with. Marianne arrived like a storm, bursting through our front door without knocking. Her eyes locked onto me immediately, narrowing as they took in my protective stance, one hand resting on my barely there bump. Well, she said, her voice dripping with disdain, I hear congratulations are in order. Though I can't say I'm not disappointed. I felt Max tense beside me, but to my surprise he spoke up. Mother, please, this is our child we're talking about. Marianne waved him off, her gaze never leaving me. Don't be naive, Maxwell. This girl will never be able to carry on the Caldwell name properly. You know what needs to be done. The room went deathly quiet. I felt the blood drain from my face as her words sank in. What are you saying, Marianne? She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. There are ways, you know, discreet clinics that can take care of this little problem. No one would ever have to know. I recoiled, bile rising in my throat. You can't be serious. This is your grandchild. A granddaughter. Marianne spat the word like a curse. What use is that to our family? No, it's better to start over. Try again for a proper heir. I turned to Max, desperate for his support, but the conflict on his face made my heart sink. Max, I whispered, pleading. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Maybe we should consider all our options, Leah. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I stumbled back, putting distance between myself and these strangers wearing the faces of my husband and mother-in-law. Get out, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Marianne smirked, triumphant. Now, dear, let's not be hasty. I said, get out, I screamed, my composure shattering. Both of you. How dare you come into my home and suggest I murder my child, my daughter? Max reached for me, his face pale. Leah, please, we're just talking. I jerked away from his touch. No, Max, we're done talking. I want you both out of this house right now. Marianne drew herself up, indignant. You can't speak to us this way. Maxwell, control your wife! But Max seemed frozen, torn between his mother and me. In that moment, seeing his indecision, something inside me broke. If you won't leave, I will, I said, my voice eerily calm. I grabbed my purse and keys, moving towards the door. Where are you going? Max called after me, panic edging into his voice. I paused at the threshold, one hand on my stomach, the other on the doorknob. Somewhere safe. Somewhere my daughter will be loved and valued no matter what. As I walked out, leaving them stunned in my wake, I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. The decision I'd been struggling with had suddenly become crystal clear. I got into my car, my hands shaking as I started the engine. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of Max in the rearview mirror, standing in the doorway looking lost. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. My focus was on the road ahead, on the future I needed to secure for myself and my daughter. Whatever it took, I would protect her, even if it meant walking away from everything I thought I wanted. With tears streaming down my face, I drove towards an uncertain future. But one thing was certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. I spent the next week at my parents' house, ignoring Max's constant calls and messages. My mom hovered anxiously, while my dad muttered about teaching that boy a lesson. But I needed time to think, to plan my next move. On the 8th day, a text from Max finally broke through my defenses. "Please, Leah, we need to talk. I'll meet you anywhere." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, the park where we had our first date. As I approached our old favorite bench, I saw Max pacing, looking haggard and sleep-deprived. "Leah," he breathed, relief washing over his face. "I've been so worried." I sat down, keeping my distance. "Say what you need to say, Max." He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I've been a coward, letting my mother dictate our lives. But I've had time to think, and I know what's important now. You and our daughter. That's all that matters." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to. But the memory of his silence in the face of Marianne's cruelty still stung. "Words are easy, Max. But when it mattered most, you didn't stand up for us." "I know," he said, his voice breaking, "and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. But please give me a chance to make it right. I've told my mother she's no longer welcome in our lives unless she can accept our family as it is." I felt a flicker of hope, quickly extinguished by suspicion. "And how did she take that?" Max's face darkened. "Not well. She threatened to cut me off, to write me out of the will. But I don't care about any of that. I only care about you and our baby." I stood up, needing to move to think. "I don't know if I can trust you, Max. How do I know this isn't just another attempt to placate me?" He reached for my hand, his eyes pleading. "Come home with me. Let me prove it to you. I've changed the locks, blocked my mother's number. Our house is ours again. No more interference, no more pressure." Against my better judgment, I let him lead me to his car. The drive home was tense, filled with unspoken words and lingering doubts. As we pulled into our driveway, I felt a sense of unease. Something was off. Max fumbled with his keys, muttering about the new locks, when suddenly the front door swung open. Marianne stood there, her face a mask of righteous fury. "So," she spat, "the prodigal daughter-in-law returns." I whirled on Max, betrayal burning in my chest. "You said—" "I didn't know," Max protested, genuine shock on his face. "Mother, how did you get in here?" Marianne waved a key, smirking. "I had a copy made, of course. Did you really think you could shut me out of my son's life so easily?" I backed away, my hand instinctively covering my stomach. "I'm leaving. This was a mistake." Max grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "Leah, wait. This isn't what I wanted. I swear." Marianne advanced, her voice dripping with false concern. "Now, dear, let's not be hasty. We're all family here. We only want what's best for you and the child." The way she said child sent chills down my spine. I jerked away from Max, my heart pounding. "Stay away from me. Both of you." As I turned to run, I saw something in Marianne's hand. A syringe? My blood ran cold as realization dawned. This wasn't just about control anymore. This was about eliminating the problem entirely. "Max!" I screamed, terror gripping me. "Do something." But Max stood frozen, torn between his mother and his wife, indecision paralyzing him once again. In that moment, I knew with sickening clarity that I was truly alone. No one was coming to save me. If I wanted to protect myself and my daughter, I would have to do it myself. With a surge of adrenaline, I shoved past Marianne and ran, my only thought to get as far away from this nightmare as possible. Behind me, I heard Max calling my name, but I didn't look back. This time I was done with second chances. It was time to save myself. I stumbled into my parents' house, gasping for air, my heart pounding. My mom rushed to me, her face etched with concern. "Leah, honey, what happened?" Through sobs, I recounted the horrifying scene at Max's house. My dad's face darkened with each word, his fists clenching at his sides. "That's it," he growled. "I'm calling the police." "No," I cried, grabbing his arm. "We can't. Not yet. I need help. That's when my mom mentioned Paul. Remember Paul Hawkins? He's a lawyer now, specializing in family law. Maybe he could help. The name stirred something in my memory, a kind smile, a steadfast presence from my youth. I nodded, desperate for any lifeline. Call him, please. Paul arrived within the hour, his familiar face now etched with lines of experience and concern. As soon as he saw me, his professional demeanor softened. Leah, he said gently, I'm so sorry you're going through this, but I promise we're going to fight for you and your daughter. Over the next few days, Paul became my rock. We pored over legal documents, building a case not just for divorce, but for a restraining order against both Max and Marianne. Paul's quiet strength and unwavering support gave me the courage to face what lay ahead. We need to move fast, Paul explained one evening, his voice tight with urgency. Max's family has connections. If we don't act now, they might try to manipulate the system. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of fear and determination. What do we do? Paul leaned forward, his eyes intense. We go on the offensive. I've gathered evidence of Marianne's threats, Max's complicity. We'll file for emergency custody and a protection order. But Leah, he paused, taking my hand, are you ready for what comes next? This won't be easy. I placed my other hand over my growing belly, feeling a fierce protectiveness surge through me. I have to be ready. For her. The next morning, as Paul and I prepared to leave for the courthouse, my phone buzzed with a message from Max. Please, Leah, don't do this. We can work it out. For the sake of our family. I showed Paul the message, my hands shaking. He frowned, reading it twice before looking up at me. This could be a trap, Leah. We need to be careful. But something in Max's words tugged at my heart. Despite everything, a small part of me still hoped for reconciliation, for the family I dreamed of. I need to see him, I said, my voice barely a whisper. One last time, to look him in the eye and know for sure. Paul's face tightened with concern. Leah, it's not safe. Let me handle this legally. No, I interrupted, a sudden clarity washing over me. I need to do this. For closure, for strength. I need to face him on my terms. After a long moment, Paul nodded reluctantly. All right, but I'm coming with you, and we do this my way. Controlled environment, witnesses present. As we drove to the agreed-upon meeting place, a busy cafe in the center of town, I felt a strange calm settle over me. This was it, the moment that would define my future, my daughter's future. We entered the cafe, and I saw Max immediately. He looked haggard, his eyes red-rimmed and desperate. As I approached, flanked by Paul and my pair, Max stood, reaching out to me. Leah, please. But before he could finish, the cafe door burst open. Marianne stormed in, her face contorted with rage. You ungrateful little tramp, she screeched, lunging towards me. In that moment, time seemed to slow. I saw Paul move to intercept her, saw my father step protectively in front of me. But it was Max's reaction that froze me in place. He stood there, paralyzed once again, torn between his mother and his wife. And in his indecision, I saw my future laid bare. As chaos erupted around us, I made my choice. No more wavering, no more second chances. It was time to fight for the life my daughter deserved, with or without Max by my side. The cafe erupted into chaos. Marianne's shriek cut through the air as she lunged at me, her eyes wild with rage. Paul moved swiftly, placing himself between us, while my father pulled me back protectively. That's enough, Paul's voice boomed, silencing the room. He turned to Max, who stood frozen, his face a mask of indecision. Control your mother, or I'll have her arrested for assault. Max finally snapped out of his stupor, grabbing Marianne's arm. Mother, stop this! You're making a scene. But Marianne was beyond reason. She wrenched free from Max's grip, her finger pointing accusingly at me. You'll regret this, Leah. I'll make sure you never see a penny of the Caldwell fortune. You and that abomination you're carrying. The room fell silent, all eyes on us. I felt a surge of strength course through me, fueled by anger and a fierce protectiveness for my unborn daughter. I stepped forward, my voice steady and clear. Listen carefully, Marianne, because I'm only going to say this once. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you or your family. What I want is for you to stay away from me and my child. Forever. I turned to Max, my heart breaking even as I spoke the words I knew I had to say. And you, Max. I loved you. I thought we had a future together, but I see now that you'll never be strong enough to stand up to her, to stand up for us. Max's face crumpled. Leah, Please, I can change. We can work this out. No, I interrupted, my resolve strengthening with each word. We can't. I won't raise my daughter in a home where she's seen as less than, where her worth is determined by her gender. She deserves better. I deserve better. Paul stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. Mr. Caldwell, Mrs. Caldwell, I have here a set of divorce papers and a restraining order. I strongly suggest you sign them now, or we'll be forced to take this matter to court. And I assure you, you don't want the details of your behavior made public. Marianne sputtered, her face red with fury. But Max, to my surprise, seemed to deflate. He looked at me, then at his mother, and for the first time I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Enough, Mother, he said quietly. It's over. With shaking hands, Max took the papers from Paul and signed them. Marianne wailed in protest, but Max silenced her with a look. We've lost, Mother. It's time to let go. As they left the cafe, Max paused at the door, looking back at me one last time. I'm sorry, Leah. I hope you find happiness. And then they were gone. The tension in the room dissipated, leaving me feeling drained but strangely light. Paul turned to me, his eyes filled with concern and something else I couldn't quite name. Are you okay? I nodded, placing a hand on my belly. We're okay, both of us. As we left the cafe, surrounded by the protective circle of Paul and my parents, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I felt hope. Paul squeezed my hand gently. You were incredible in there, Leah. Your daughter is lucky to have you as her mother. I smiled, feeling tears prick at my eyes. Thank you, Paul, for everything. I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. He looked at me intently, his voice soft but sure. You're stronger than you know, Leah. You would have found a way, but I'm glad I could be here for you. As we walked into the sunlight, I felt a kick from my daughter, as if she was affirming my choices. I laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. What is it? Paul asked, smiling at my sudden mirth. Nothing, I said, grinning. Just thinking about the future, our future. And as we drove away, leaving the cafe and all it represented behind, I felt a sense of excitement building. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to the journey. With my daughter by my side and friends like Paul to support me, I knew we could face anything. The battle was over and we had won. Now it was time to start living. I smoothed my dress for the 100th time, eyeing my reflection in the full-length mirror. The ivory silk clung to my curves, a perfect fit for tomorrow's wedding. My wedding. The thought still made my stomach flutter with excitement and nerves. Sophie, you ready to go? Dylan's voice called from the living room. Just a minute. I gave myself one last look, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. This was it. The night before our big day, dinner at Dylan's parents' house with both our families. A chance to bask in the love and support of those closest to us. I stepped out of the bedroom to find Dylan adjusting his tie. He looked handsome in his navy suit, his dark hair neatly combed. When he saw me, his eyes lit up. Wow, he breathed. You look stunning. I felt a blush creep up my cheeks. Even after 3 years together, his compliments still made me feel like a schoolgirl with a crush. Thanks. You don't look so bad yourself. Dylan pulled me close, planting a soft kiss on my lips. Ready to face the family circus? I laughed, grateful for his humor, as ready as I'll ever be. As we headed for the door, Dylan's phone buzzed on the side table. He glanced at it, a flicker of something, worry, annoyance, crossing his face. Everything okay? I asked. He pocketed the phone quickly. Yeah, just work stuff, nothing important. I nodded, pushing aside a nagging feeling. Dylan had been working late a lot recently, claiming a big project was keeping him busy. But tonight was about us, about family. I wouldn't let work worries intrude. The drive to his parents' house was filled with easy chatter about last-minute wedding details. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw my sister Teresa's car already parked. Looks like we're the last to arrive, Dylan said, killing the engine. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I loved my family. I truly did. But gatherings like this always left me feeling less than, especially with Teresa around. My older sister had always been the golden child, effortlessly charming and beautiful. Next to her, I often felt invisible. Dylan squeezed my hand. Hey, you okay? I forced a smile. Of course. Let's go in. The moment we stepped through the door, we were engulfed in a whirlwind of hugs and exclamations. Dylan's mom, Harriet, pulled me into a warm embrace. "Oh, Sophie dear, you look lovely," she gushed. "Thanks, Harriet, something smells amazing," I said, catching a whiff of roast chicken. "That would be my famous herb-roasted chicken," she beamed. "Dylan's favorite." From the corner of my eye, I saw Teresa saunter over. She looked stunning as always in a form-fitting red dress, her blonde hair cascading over her shoulders. "Little sis," she exclaimed, air-kissing my cheeks. "That dress is darling on you. I'm so glad you took my advice about the neckline." I bristled inwardly at her backhanded compliment but plastered on a smile. "Thanks, Teresa. You look great, too." As everyone moved to the dining room, I noticed Dylan hanging back, fiddling with his phone again. When he saw me watching, he quickly pocketed it and flashed a smile. "Everything okay?" I asked again. "Of course," he said, a little too brightly. "Just making sure I turned off notifications. Tonight's all about family, right?" I nodded, but that nagging feeling was back, stronger now. As we took our seats at the table, I couldn't shake the sense that something was off. Dinner progressed with the usual mix of reminiscing, gentle teasing, and wedding talk. I tried to focus on the conversation, on the warmth of family gathered together, but my mind kept drifting to Dylan's strange behavior. As Harriet cleared the plates for dessert, Dylan excused himself to use the bathroom. His phone, left on the table, buzzed with an incoming text. Before I could stop myself, I glanced at the screen. My heart stopped. The message preview read, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, our special day. Love, T." T. Teresa? In that moment, my world tilted on its axis. The chatter around me faded to a dull roar, as one thought blazed through my mind. What have I stumbled into? I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white as I struggled to process what I'd just seen. The text message from Teresa to Dylan burned in my mind, mocking everything I thought I knew about my relationship, my family, my life. "Sophie, are you all right, dear?" My mother's voice cut through the fog of shock. "You look pale." I forced a smile, my heart hammering. "I'm fine, Mom, just a bit overwhelmed with all the wedding excitement, I guess." Dylan returned, sliding into his seat beside me. His hand found mine under the table, a gesture that used to comfort me. Now it made my skin crawl. "Everything okay, babe?" he asked, his voice low and concerned. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. How could he sit there playing the doting fiancé when he was betraying me with my own sister? As dessert was served, I watched Dylan and Teresa like a hawk. The little glances, the way Teresa's laugh seemed to linger a beat too long at Dylan's jokes. How had I been so blind? "So, Teresa," my father boomed, "any prospects on the horizon for you? Can't let your little sister beat you to the altar, can you?" Teresa's tinkling laugh grated on my nerves. "Oh, Daddy, you know me. I'm just having too much fun to settle down." "That's our Teresa," Mom chimed in, her voice warm with pride. Always the life of the party. I bit back a bitter retort. Of course, perfect Teresa could do no wrong, even if she was stealing her sister's fiancé. As the evening wore on, I felt like I was suffocating. Every loving glance from Dylan, every casual touch from Teresa, it all felt like a cruel charade. Finally, as we were saying our goodbyes, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed air, needed space to think. "I'm just going to step outside for a moment," I mumbled, slipping away from the group. The cool night air hit my face as I stumbled onto the porch, gulping in deep breaths. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. How long had this been going on? Was our entire relationship a lie? Sophie? Teresa's voice made me stiffen. "Are you okay? You've been acting strange all night." I turned to face her, searching her features for any sign of guilt or remorse. But all I saw was the same confident, beautiful sister I'd always known and always felt inferior to. "I'm fine," I said, my voice tight. "Just wedding jitters, I guess." Teresa's laugh was light, carefree. "Oh, sweetie, there's nothing to worry about. Dylan adores you. You two are perfect together." The irony of her words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth, ready to confront her, to demand the truth. But at that moment, Dylan appeared in the doorway. "There you are," he said, smiling at us both. "Ready to head home, Sophie?" I looked between them, these two people I thought I knew so well. The betrayal cut deep, but a new emotion was rising within me. Anger. "Actually," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "I think I'll stay and help your mom clean up, Dylan. Why don't you give Teresa a ride home? I'm sure you two have plenty to talk about." A flicker of panic crossed Dylan's face, quickly masked. Are you sure? It's no trouble to wait. I'm sure, I said firmly. Go on. I'll see you at home. As I watched them leave together, a plan began to form in my mind. They thought they could play me for a fool, but they had no idea what was coming. Tomorrow wasn't going to be the wedding day they expected. Not by a long shot. I turned back to the house, a grim smile on my face. It was time to start gathering evidence. The truth would come out, and when it did, I'd make sure everyone knew exactly who Teresa and Dylan really were. Let the games begin. I paced our apartment like a caged animal, waiting for Dylan to return. My mind raced with all the things I wanted to say, all the accusations I needed to hurl. The clock ticked away the minutes, each one stretching into an eternity. Finally, I heard the key in the lock. Dylan stumbled in, his tie loosened, and a sheepish grin on his face. Hey, babe, he slurred. Sorry I'm late. Teresa and I got to talking, and... Save it, I snapped, my voice sharp enough to cut through his drunken haze. I know everything, Dylan. He blinked, confusion clouding his features. What are you talking about? I grabbed his phone from the coffee table, waving it in his face. I saw the messages, Dylan. I know about you and Teresa. The color drained from his face, replaced by a sickly pallor. Sophie, I can explain. Explain what? I shouted, my composure finally shattering. Explain how you've been sneaking around with my sister? How you've been lying to me for God knows how long. Dylan reached for me, but I recoiled from his touch. It's not what you think, he pleaded. Teresa and I, we just connected. But I love you, Sophie. I want to marry you. His words, meant to soothe, only fueled my anger. How dare you, I hissed. How dare you stand there and claim to love me while you're sleeping with my sister? It was a mistake, Dylan insisted, his voice taking on a desperate edge. A moment of weakness. It didn't mean anything. I laughed bitterly. A moment of weakness? The text I saw suggested otherwise. This isn't just a fling, is it? You two have been planning something. Dylan's face contorted, a mix of guilt and frustration. You don't understand. Teresa, she's different. She gets me in a way you never could. The words hit me like a physical blow. All the years of feeling second best to Teresa came rushing back, a tidal wave of insecurity and pain. Get out, I whispered, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. Sophie, please. Get out, I screamed, grabbing the nearest object, a framed photo of us, and hurling it at him. It shattered against the wall, a fitting metaphor for our relationship. Dylan stumbled back, shock written across his face. You're overreacting. We can work this out. Think about the wedding, about our families. Our families? I laughed hysterically. You mean the family that's always favored Teresa? The family that's going to side with her, just like they always have? As the words left my mouth, a chilling realization washed over me. They would side with Teresa. My parents, our friends, they'd all believe her version of events. Sweet, perfect Teresa, who could do no wrong. Dylan must have seen the change in my expression because he stepped forward, his voice taking on a manipulative tone. See? You know I'm right. We can get past this, Sophie. For the sake of our families, for our future. Don't throw it all away over a misunderstanding. For a moment I wavered. The thought of facing everyone, of admitting that once again Teresa had bested me, was almost too much to bear. But then I remembered the text, the secret smiles, the years of lies. No, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We're done, Dylan. The wedding's off. I yanked my engagement ring off, flinging it at his feet. Tell Teresa she can have you. You deserve each other. Dylan's face darkened. You'll regret this, Sophie. You're nothing without me, without your family. Who's going to believe you over Teresa? His words, meant to wound, ignited something in me. A fierce determination I didn't know I possessed. Get out, I said one last time, my voice cold and hard, and tell Teresa to watch her back. This isn't over. As the door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, tears finally breaking free. But beneath the sorrow, a plan was forming. They thought they could walk all over me, that I'd just roll over and take it like always. Not this time. This time I was going to fight back. And God help anyone who stood in my way. I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, a single suitcase at my feet. The bare walls and empty rooms echoed with possibility and loneliness. This wasn't how I'd imagined starting my new life, but here I was, 35 and starting over. A gentle knock startled me from my thoughts. I opened the door to find an elderly woman with kind eyes and silver hair. "Hello, dear. I'm Clara from next door. I saw you moving in and thought you might like some company." And some homemade lasagna. I felt tears prick my eyes at this simple act of kindness. "That's so thoughtful. I'm Sophie. Please come in." As we sat at my makeshift dining table, a cardboard box, Clara's warmth drew out my story. I found myself pouring out everything: Dylan's betrayal, Teresa's manipulation, my family's blind spots. Clara listened intently, her weathered hand covering mine. "Oh, honey, you've been through the ringer, but you're stronger than you know." Her words were a balm to my battered spirit. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Now," Clara said, her eyes twinkling, "tell me about this sister of yours. Has she always been the favorite?" The question transported me back to childhood memories I'd long suppressed. Teresa, golden and perfect, always the center of attention. Me, forever in her shadow. "I remember when I was 10, I began, the words tumbling out. I'd worked for weeks on a science project. The night before the fair, Teresa knocked it over accidentally. Instead of being upset, my parents praised her for helping me rebuild it. She got all the credit at the fair." Clara shook her head. "Some people thrive on that kind of attention, even if it means stepping on others." "That's Teresa in a nutshell," I agreed. "But stealing my fiancé, that's a new low, even for her." A determined glint appeared in Clara's eye. "Well, it's high time you stood up for yourself, Sophie. Have you considered digging deeper into Teresa's past? People like that often leave a trail of destruction." Her suggestion sparked something in me. I grabbed my laptop, fingers flying over the keys as I searched social media, old news articles, anything I could find about Teresa. What I uncovered left me reeling. Teresa's perfect life was anything but. There were hints of affairs, suspicious job changes, even a restraining order from an ex-boyfriend. But the most shocking discovery was a series of posts from my cousin Megan, dated 3 years ago. "I can't believe Teresa would stoop so low," Megan had written. "Stealing your sister's boyfriend is one thing, but marrying him? Sophie deserves to know the truth." My hands shook as I pieced it together. 3 years ago, I'd been dating Mark. We'd been serious, talking about a future together. Then suddenly, he'd broken things off. Months later, Teresa had introduced her new husband, Mark, to the family. I'd been devastated, but had eventually moved on, meeting Dylan. Now history was repeating itself. "Oh my God," I whispered, showing Clara the posts. "She's done this before. She stole my boyfriend, married him, and I never knew." Clara's face hardened. "That's beyond sibling rivalry, Sophie. That's calculated cruelty." A cold determination settled over me. I need to confront her. Both of them. They can't keep getting away with this. "Be careful," Clara warned. "People like that can be dangerous when cornered. You need a plan." I nodded, my mind already racing. "You're right. I can't just rush in. I need to be smart about this." As the sun set outside my new apartment, Clara and I began to strategize. For the first time since discovering Dylan's betrayal, I felt a sense of purpose. "Teresa thinks she's won," I said, a steely edge to my voice. "But she has no idea what's coming. This ends now." Clara squeezed my hand. "That's the spirit, dear. Show them who you really are." As Clara left, promising to check in tomorrow, I stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker to life. I was done being the victim. Done letting Teresa and others like her walk all over me. It was time to fight back. And this time, I wouldn't stop until the truth was exposed, no matter the cost. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by a web of papers, sticky notes, and my laptop. Clara's words echoed in my mind. Be smart about this. For days I'd been piecing to Teresa's past, uncovering a pattern of deception that made my blood boil. A knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find Angie, my best friend, her face etched with concern. "Sophie, I came as soon as I could. What's going on? Your texts were cryptic." I ushered her in, grateful for her presence. "Angie, you're not going to believe what I've discovered." Over the next hour, I laid out everything. Dylan's betrayal, Teresa's history of stealing boyfriends, and my plan to expose them both. Angie's eyes widened. "Sophie, this is intense. Are you sure you want to go through with this? It could tear your family apart." I felt a flicker of doubt, but pushed it aside. They tore the family apart when they betrayed me. Twice. I'm just bringing the truth to light. Angie nodded slowly. "Okay, I'm with you. What's the plan?" I pulled out a detailed timeline I'd created. There's a family reunion next month at Dylan's parents' house. Everyone will be there. I'm going to expose them in front of everyone. As I explained my strategy involving carefully gathered evidence and timed revelations, Angie's expression shifted from concern to admiration. You've really thought this through, she said. But Sophie, what about after? Have you considered the fallout? I hesitated. The truth was, I hadn't thought much beyond the moment of exposure. The idea of facing my family, of dealing with the aftermath, made my stomach churn. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts. Clara poked her head in, a plate of cookies in hand. I thought you girls might need some sustenance for your planning session. As Clara settled in, bringing her wisdom to our discussion, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. Sophie, we need to talk. Your father and I are worried about you. Teresa says you've been making wild accusations. Please come home so we can sort this out. I showed the text to Angie and Clara, my hands shaking. See, they're already taking her side. They always do. Clara patted my hand. Remember, dear, this isn't just about your family anymore. It's about standing up for yourself. Angie nodded in agreement. She's right, Soph. You can't back down now. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. You're both right. I'm going to respond, but not the way they expect. I typed out a reply. Mom, I'll be there. But be prepared. There's a lot you don't know, and it's time for the truth to come out. As I hit send, a wave of determination washed over me. This ends now, I said, my voice steady. I'm going to Dylan's parents' house tomorrow. I can't wait for the reunion. They need to know what kind of person their son really is. Clara's eyes widened. Are you sure that's wise, dear? Going into the lion's den unprepared? I nodded, a plan already forming. I'm more prepared than they could ever imagine. Angie, can you come with me? I could use the support. Angie squeezed my hand. Of course, I wouldn't miss it. As we finalized the details, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. Tomorrow, I would confront not just Dylan and Teresa, but years of being overlooked and undervalued. Clara hugged me tightly before leaving. Remember, Sophie, the truth is your armor. Wear it proudly. That night, as I lay in bed, I imagined all the possible outcomes of tomorrow's confrontation. But one thing was certain. Win or lose, I was done being a doormat. Tomorrow, I would reclaim my voice, my dignity, and my future. As dawn broke, I rose, determination coursing through my veins. Today was the day everything would change. I only hoped I was ready for whatever came next. My heart pounded as Angie and I approached Dylan's parents' house. The familiar driveway, once a symbol of family and belonging, now felt like enemy territory. I clutched my folder of evidence, my lifeline in the storm I was about to unleash. You ready for this? Angie whispered, squeezing my hand. I nodded, steeling myself, as ready as I'll ever be. The door opened before we could knock, revealing Dylan's mother, Harriet. Her eyes widened in surprise. Sophie, we weren't expecting you. Is everything all right? No, Harriet, it's not, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But it will be once the truth comes out. Is everyone here? Confusion clouded her features as she ushered us in. In the living room, I found my worst fears confirmed. Dylan and Teresa sat side by side on the couch, their proximity speaking volumes. My parents were there too, along with Dylan's father, Walter. The room fell silent as I entered. Dylan stood abruptly, his face a mask of panic. Sophie, what are you doing here? I ignored him, addressing the room at large. I'm here because it's time everyone knew the truth, about Dylan, about Teresa, and about the lies that have been tearing this family apart for years. My mother's face paled. Sophie, what are you talking about? Teresa said you've been making wild accusations. Of course she did, I cut in, my voice sharp. Teresa's been manipulating all of you for years, and it stops today. I opened my folder, pulling out printed emails, text messages, and photos. Did you know that Teresa and Dylan have been having an affair? Not just now, but 3 years ago, when I was dating Mark? Gasps echoed around the room. Teresa jumped up, her face contorted with rage. You're lying. How dare you come here and spread these vicious rumors? But I was done being silenced. I turned to my parents, my voice breaking. Mom, do you remember when Mark suddenly broke up with me? It wasn't because of work stress like Teresa told you. It was because she seduced him, just like she's done with Dylan. I handed them the evidence, watching as their expressions shifted from disbelief to horror. Dylan's parents looked shell-shocked, staring at their son with newfound disappointment. Dylan made a desperate lunge for the papers, but Angie intercepted him. "Don't even think about it," she warned. I continued, my voice gaining strength. "Teresa, you've always been the favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. But do you want to know why? Because you've manipulated everyone around you, stealing opportunities, boyfriends, and even husbands to make yourself look better." Teresa's composure cracked. "You don't understand. I never meant to hurt you, Sophie. I couldn't stand seeing you happy when I was so miserable." Her admission hung in the air, heavy with years of resentment and jealousy. I turned to Dylan, my voice ice-cold. "And you? You were willing to marry me while carrying on with my sister. How long did you think you could keep this charade going?" Dylan's face crumpled. "Sophie, please. We can work this out. I love you. Save it," I snapped. "Your actions speak louder than your words ever could." As the full weight of the revelation settled over the room, I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion. Years of pent-up emotions and unspoken truths had finally been released. My father, his voice thick with emotion, broke the silence. "Sophie, we had no idea. All these years we thought—" "You thought Teresa could do no wrong," I finished for him, "and that I was just being oversensitive or jealous. Well, now you know the truth." The room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, tears fell, and years of family dynamics unraveled before my eyes. In the midst of it all, I felt a strange sense of calm. I had done it. I had finally stood up for myself. But as I watched my family, both families, grapple with the fallout of my revelations, a new fear gripped me. What would be left when the dust settled? Had I just destroyed the very relationships I had been fighting to save? As Dylan made one last desperate plea and Teresa collapsed into sobs, I realized that this was far from over. The truth was out, but the real battle, the fight to rebuild and heal, was only just beginning. The days following my revelation at Dylan's parents' house were a blur of heated phone calls, tearful confrontations, and sleepless nights. I'd unleashed a tsunami of truth, and now I was struggling to stay afloat in its wake. I sat in my apartment, staring at my phone as it buzzed incessantly with messages from family members and friends. Each notification felt like a fresh wound, reopening the pain of betrayal. A gentle knock at the door startled me. It was Clara, her kind eyes filled with concern. "Sophie, dear, you haven't left your apartment in days. How are you holding up?" I let out a bitter laugh. "How am I holding up? I've torn my family apart, Clara. I thought exposing the truth would make everything better, but it's only made things worse." Clara settled beside me on the couch, her weathered hand covering mine. "The truth often hurts before it heals, Sophie. Give it time." Just then my phone rang. It was my mother. With a deep breath, I answered. "Sophie," her voice was strained, "we need to talk. Can you come over? Your father and we owe you an apology." My heart raced as I agreed. An hour later, I found myself standing in my childhood home, facing my parents across the kitchen table. The air was thick with unspoken words and years of misunderstandings. "We had no idea," my father began, his voice heavy with regret. "All these years we thought Teresa was just more outgoing, more successful. We never realized the extent of her manipulation." My mother reached for my hand. "Sophie, can you ever forgive us for being so blind?" Tears welled in my eyes. This was the validation I'd craved for so long, but it felt hollow in the face of everything that had happened. "I don't know," I admitted. "I love you both, but the damage, it's not something that can be fixed overnight." As we talked, years of pent-up emotions poured out. It was painful, but cathartic. For the first time, I felt truly seen by my parents. Our conversation was interrupted by a commotion outside. We rushed to the window to see Dylan on the front lawn, looking disheveled and desperate. "Sophie," he called out. "Please, we need to talk. I can explain everything." My father moved to confront him, but I held him back. "No, Dad, I need to handle this myself." I stepped outside, my newfound strength propelling me forward. "There's nothing to explain, Dylan. Your actions spoke louder than any words ever could." Dylan's face crumpled. "But I love you, Sophie. Teresa, she manipulated me, just like she did everyone else. We can still make this work." For a moment, I wavered. The old Sophie, desperate for love and acceptance, wanted to believe him, but then I remembered everything. The lies, the betrayals, the years of being second best. "No, Dylan," I said firmly. "We can't. What you and Teresa did, it's unforgivable. I deserve better than either of you. As I turned to go back inside, I saw Teresa's car pull up. My sister stepped out, her usual poise replaced by genuine remorse. "Sophie, wait," she called out. "I know I've done terrible things, but please, you're my sister. We can't let this destroy our family." I felt a surge of emotions, anger, hurt, and a tiny flicker of love for the sister I once knew. But I stood my ground. "You destroyed our family long ago, Teresa. With every lie, every manipulation, I'm done being your victim." As I walked back into the house, leaving Dylan and Teresa on the lawn, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and liberation. I'd lost my fiancé, my sister, and the family I thought I had. But I'd gained something far more valuable, self-respect and the truth. Inside, my parents waited, their faces a mix of pride and concern. "What now?" my mother asked softly. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the future on my shoulders. "Now we rebuild. If you're willing to try, so am I." As we embraced, I realized that this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with difficult conversations and painful truths. But for the first time in my life, I felt ready to face it head-on. The old Sophie was gone. In her place stood a woman who knew her worth and was no longer afraid to claim it. 6 months had passed since that fateful day when I confronted Dylan and Teresa. The wounds were still fresh, but slowly healing. I stood in my new apartment, surrounded by boxes, ready to embark on the next chapter of my life. Clara knocked on my open door, a warm smile on her face. "Ready for your housewarming party, dear?" I took a deep breath, nodding. "As ready as I'll ever be." As guests began to arrive, Angie, my parents, even a few colleagues from work, I felt a surge of gratitude. These were the people who had stood by me through the darkest days, helping me rebuild my life piece by piece. My mother hugged me tightly. "Sophie, we're so proud of you," she whispered. "You've shown such strength." I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't experienced in years. Our relationship was still a work in progress, but it was stronger, more honest than ever before. As the party was in full swing, there was another knock at the door. I opened it to find Teresa standing there, looking uncertain. "Sophie, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see," she began. I felt a flicker of the old pain, but it was duller now. "Teresa, Please, let me say this," she interrupted. "I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did. I know it doesn't excuse anything, but I want you to know how sorry I am, for everything." I studied her face, seeing genuine remorse for the first time. "Thank you for saying that, Teresa. I can't forgive you yet, but maybe someday." As Teresa left, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The past couldn't be changed, but the future was mine to shape. Returning to the party, I found myself drawn into a conversation with Greg, a friend of Angie's I'd met a few weeks ago. His kind eyes and easy laugh made me feel at ease. "So, Sophie," he said, "Angie tells me you're starting your own business?" I nodded, excitement bubbling up. "Yes, a small consulting firm. It's scary, but exhilarating." "I know the feeling," Greg replied. "I started my own company a few years ago. It's not easy, but it's worth it." As we talked, I felt a spark of connection. Not the whirlwind romance I'd had with Dylan, but something steadier, more grounded. Later, as the party wound down, Clara pulled me aside. "Sophie, look at you. You're glowing, dear." I smiled, realizing she was right. For the first time in months, I felt truly happy. "I couldn't have done it without you, Clara. Your wisdom, your support, it meant everything." Clara patted my hand. "You had the strength inside you all along, Sophie. You just needed to believe in yourself." As the last guest left, I stood on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. I thought about how far I'd come, from the heartbroken woman who discovered her fiancé's betrayal to the strong, independent person I was today. The road hadn't been easy. There were still days when the pain of betrayal threatened to overwhelm me. But I had learned to face it head-on, to draw strength from the experience rather than let it defeat me. I thought about Teresa, about the long journey of healing that lay ahead for our family. I thought about Dylan, hoping he had learned from his mistakes. And I thought about Greg, wondering if perhaps there was a new chapter waiting to be written there. But most of all, I thought about myself. The Sophie who had emerged from the ashes of betrayal was stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I ever thought possible. As I closed the balcony door and turned back to my new home, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in my life, I was excited to face it. I had lost a fiancé and a sister, but I had gained something far more valuable: self-respect, true friendships, and a deep understanding of my own worth. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning, and I couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. I stood at the kitchen counter, chopping onions for my signature beef stew, when Josie burst through the front door. Her face was flushed, eyes wild with a mix of anger and something else I couldn't quite place. "Mom, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling. I set down the knife, wiping my hands on my apron. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Josie paced the kitchen, her hands clenched into fists. "I saw Dad today. He was with Claudia." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, with Claudia?" "They were at the mall, holding hands. I saw them, kissing." Josie's voice cracked on the last word. The room started to spin. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. "Are you sure it was them?" Josie nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I'm positive, Mom. I'm so sorry." I took a deep breath, trying to process this bombshell. Steve and Claudia? My husband and my best friend? It couldn't be true. But Josie wouldn't lie about something like this. "Did they see you?" I asked, my mind racing. "No, I don't think so. I ran out of there as fast as I could." I pulled Josie into a hug, feeling her body shake with sobs. "It's okay, sweetie. We'll figure this out." Just then, the front door opened again. Jesse walked in, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He took one look at us and froze. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. I released Josie and turned to face my son. "Jesse, we need to talk. All of us." We gathered around the kitchen table, the beef stew forgotten. I explained what Josie had seen, watching Jesse's face darken with each word. "I'll kill him," Jesse growled, his hands balling into fists. "No, you won't," I said firmly. "We need to handle this like adults." "But Mom," Josie interjected, "what are you going to do?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. "First, I need to talk to your father. We need to hear his side of the story." "His side?" Jesse scoffed. "What side could possibly justify cheating on you?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I owe it to our family to at least hear him out before making any decisions." The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made us all freeze. Steve was home. "Kids, go to your rooms," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to talk to your father alone." Josie and Jesse exchanged worried glances, but did as I asked. As they climbed the stairs, I heard the front door open. "Laura?" Steve called out. "Something smells good." I stood up, smoothing down my apron. My hands were shaking, but I clenched them into fists at my sides. Steve walked into the kitchen, a smile on his face that quickly faded when he saw my expression. "What's wrong?" I looked at him, this man I'd loved for over 20 years, and felt my heart breaking. "We need to talk, Steve. Josie saw you today, with Claudia." The color drained from his face. "Laura, I can explain." "Can you?" I interrupted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Can you explain why our daughter had to see her father kissing another woman? Can you explain why you'd betray me with my best friend?" Steve's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. In that moment of silence, I heard the muffled sobs of Josie from upstairs and Jesse's attempts to comfort her. I took a step closer to Steve, my voice low and dangerous. "You have one chance to tell me the truth, Steve. One chance to save this family. What's it going to be?" As I stared into his eyes, searching for any sign of the man I married, I realized that no matter what he said next, nothing would ever be the same again. Our perfect little family was shattered, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. I couldn't sleep that night. Steve's weak explanations and half-hearted apologies echoed in my head. By morning, I was a mess of anger and hurt, determined to see the truth for myself. I drove to Claudia's house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. As I turned onto her street, my heart stopped. There was Steve's car, parked right in front of her house. I pulled over, my vision blurring with tears. How could he do this? How could they both betray me like this? My phone buzzed. It was Jessie. "Mom, where are you? Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "I'm fine, honey. I just needed to run an errand." "You don't sound fine. I'm coming to get you." "No, Jessie, But he had already hung up. I sat there, staring at Claudia's house, willing myself not to march up to the door and confront them both. 20 minutes later, Jesse's beat-up Corolla pulled up behind me. He got out and tapped on my window. I rolled it down, avoiding his eyes. "How did you find me?" "Find my iPhone," he said, his voice tight. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I gestured weakly at Steve's car. Jesse's face darkened as he understood. "Let's go home," he said, opening my door. "You shouldn't be here." As I got out, the front door of Claudia's house opened. Steve stepped out, laughing at something behind him. When he turned and saw us, the laughter died on his lips. "Laura? Jesse?" He looked between us, confusion and guilt warring on his face. Jesse stepped forward, his fists clenched. "How could you, Dad? How could you do this to Mom?" Steve held up his hands. "Son, it's complicated. You don't understand." "I understand plenty," Jesse spat. "I understand that you're a lying, cheating—" "Jesse, stop," I said, grabbing his arm. "This isn't helping." Claudia appeared in the doorway, her face pale. "Laura, I'm so sorry. We never meant for this to happen." I laughed bitterly. "Never meant for what to happen, Claudia? For me to find out? For my children to see their father destroy our family?" Steve took a step toward us. "Laura, please, let's talk about this. Not here. Not like this." "No," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "We're done talking, Steve. We're done with all of it." I turned to Jesse. "Let's go home." As we drove away, Jesse glanced at me. "Mom, what are we going to do?" I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets of our neighborhood blur past. "I don't know, honey, but we'll figure it out together." When we got home, Josie was waiting on the porch. One look at our faces told her everything. "It's true, isn't it?" she asked, her voice small. "Dad's really leaving us for her." I pulled both my children into a tight hug, feeling their bodies shake with silent sobs. "I don't know what your father's going to do," I said. "But I know that the three of us are going to be okay. We have each other, and that's what matters." We went inside, and I made us all some tea. As we sat around the kitchen table, I looked at my children's tear-stained faces and felt a fierce protectiveness wash over me. "I want you both to listen to me," I said. "What your father did was wrong. It's going to hurt for a long time, but we are not going to let this break us. We are stronger than that." Jesse nodded, his jaw set. "What do you need us to do, Mom?" I reached out and squeezed his hand. "Just be yourselves. Focus on school, on your friends. I'll handle everything else." Josie wiped her eyes. "But what about you, Mom? Who's going to take care of you?" I smiled, feeling a warmth in my chest despite everything. "We'll take care of each other. That's what family does." As we sat there sipping our tea and making plans for the future, I felt a strange mix of sadness and hope. Our lives had been turned upside down, but we were still standing. And no matter what Steve or Claudia or anyone else threw at us, we would face it together. The next morning, I woke to the sound of the front door slamming. Steve was home. I steeled myself for the confrontation I knew was coming. I found him in the kitchen, slumped at the table, his head in his hands. He looked up as I entered, his eyes bloodshot and weary. "Laura," he said, his voice hoarse. "We need to talk." I poured myself a cup of coffee, my hands steady despite the turmoil inside. "Yes, we do." Steve took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, I know that doesn't begin to cover it, but I am. What I did, it was unforgivable." "You're right," I said, my voice cold. "It was." He flinched at my tone. "I want to make this right. Tell me what I need to do." I laughed bitterly. "Make it right? Steve, you can't just fix this with an apology and some flowers. You destroyed our family." "I know," he said, his voice breaking, "but I want to try. For the kids, if nothing else." I set my coffee cup down hard, liquid sloshing over the rim. "Don't you dare use our children as an excuse. You should have thought about them before you started sleeping with my best friend." Steve's face crumpled. "Laura, please. I made a mistake, a terrible, awful mistake. But I love you. I love our family. If you loved us, you wouldn't have done this," I spat. He stood up, reaching for me. I stepped back out of his reach. "Don't touch me," I hissed. Steve's hand fell to his side. He looked defeated, lost. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "What do you want, Steve?" I asked, suddenly tired. "Why are you really here?" He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "I want a divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow. Even after everything, I hadn't expected this. "A divorce?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Steve nodded, not meeting my eyes. "I think it's for the best, for all of us." I felt the room spinning. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. "You want to leave me for her, for Claudia." "It's not like that," Steve protested weakly. Then what is it like? I demanded, my voice rising. Explain it to me, Steve. Explain how you can throw away 20 years of marriage, 2 children, everything we've built together for what? A fling with a woman who wears too much perfume and maxes out her credit cards? Steve's face hardened. Don't talk about her like that. You don't know her. And you do? I laughed, the sound harsh and brittle. Let me guess, she understands you in a way I never could. She makes you feel young again. Is that it? Stop it, Laura, Steve said, his voice low and dangerous. No, you stop it, I shot back. You don't get to waltz in here and demand a divorce like you're asking for a cup of sugar. You don't get to destroy our lives and then act like you're the victim. Just then, Josie appeared in the doorway, her face pale. Mom, Dad, what's going on? Steve's expression softened. Josie, honey, go back to your room. Your mom and I are just talking. No, I said firmly. She deserves to know. Your father wants a divorce, Josie. He's leaving us for Claudia. Josie's eyes filled with tears. Dad, is that true? Steve looked stricken. Josie, it's complicated. I never meant to hurt anyone. But you did, Josie said, her voice breaking. You hurt all of us. She turned and ran upstairs. We heard her door slam shut. Steve moved to follow her, but I blocked his path. Leave her alone. You've done enough damage. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Laura, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling, take some time apart, anything but this. I shook my head, feeling a strange calm settle over me. No, Steve, you wanted a divorce. You've got one. Now get out of my house. As I watched him leave, I felt a mix of grief and determination wash over me. Our life together was over, but I had 2 children who needed me. No matter what it took, I would protect them and give them the stability they deserved. Steve may have given up on our family, but I never would. I stood on Steve's parents' doorstep, my heart pounding. I'd always gotten along well with Martha and George, but this visit felt different, dangerous even. Still, I needed to try. For the kids' sake, if nothing else. Martha answered the door, her smile fading as she saw me. Laura, what are you doing here? I took a deep breath. We need to talk, Martha, about Steve. Huh? She hesitated, then stepped aside to let me in. George was in the living room, watching golf. He muted the TV as I entered. What's this about, Laura? He asked, his voice gruff. I sat down, clasping my hands tightly in my lap. Steve and I are getting a divorce. He's been having an affair with Claudia. The silence that followed was deafening. Martha's face paled, while George's reddened. That can't be right, Martha said finally. There must be some mistake. I shook my head. I'm afraid not. Josie saw them together, and Steve admitted it to me himself. George leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. And what did you do to drive him to this, Laura? I recoiled as if I'd been slapped. Excuse me, George, Martha exclaimed, but he waved her off. No, I want to know, he pressed. Steve's a good man. He wouldn't do this without reason. I felt anger bubbling up inside me. Without reason. There is no reason good enough to justify what he's done. Martha sat down beside me, her face a mask of concern. Laura, dear, maybe if you'd been more attentive to Steve's needs. My needs? I interrupted, incredulous. What about my needs? What about our children's needs? George scoffed. Don't bring the kids into this. They'll be fine. Kids are resilient. I stood up, my hands shaking. Resilient? Do you have any idea what this is doing to them? Josie cries herself to sleep every night. Jessie's barely speaking to anyone. Well, maybe if you hadn't turned them against their father, Martha began. I didn't turn anyone against Steve, I snapped. He did that all on his own when he decided to throw away our family for a fling with Claudia. George stood up, towering over me. Now listen here, young lady. I won't have you coming into our home and speaking ill of our son. I refused to back down. Your son destroyed our family. He's abandoning his children for a woman who cares more about her designer handbags than anyone else. Martha gasped. How dare you speak about Claudia that way? She's a lovely woman. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. You knew, I whispered, looking between them. You knew about the affair, didn't you? Their silence was all the confirmation I needed. How long? I demanded. How long have you known? George looked away. That's not important. It is to me, I shouted. How long have you been lying to my face, pretending everything was fine? Martha stood up, wringing her hands. Laura, please try to understand. Steve was unhappy. Claudia makes him happy. I felt like I was going to be sick. And what about me? What about my happiness? What about our children's happiness? Sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good, George said solemnly. I stared at them, these people I'd considered family for over 2 decades. The greater good? Is that what you call destroying a family? Martha reached out to touch my arm. I jerked away. Don't, I said, my voice cold. Don't you dare try to comfort me now. You're as much to blame for this as Steve is. I headed for the door, pausing with my hand on the knob. I came here hoping for support, for some semblance of family. I see now that was a mistake. You're not my family. You never were. As I walked out, I heard Martha call after me, but I didn't turn back. My mind was racing, piecing together all the times Steve had visited his parents alone, all the knowing looks and hushed conversations. I got into my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I'd come here looking for peace, for a way to salvage something from this mess. Instead, I'd found more betrayal, more pain. As I drove home, I made a decision. No more olive branches, no more attempts at reconciliation. From now on, I was fighting for myself and my children, and God help anyone who stood in my way. I was elbow-deep in soapy water, scrubbing dishes with more force than necessary, when the front door slammed open. Steve stormed into the kitchen, his face a thundercloud of rage. "You went to my parents," he shouted, not bothering with a greeting. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands, trying to stay calm. "Yes, I did. How dare you?" Steve's voice rose. "You had no right to drag them into this." I felt my own anger rising to match his. "No right? They're my children's grandparents. I thought they deserved to know what was happening to their family." Steve laughed bitterly. "Family? Is that what you call this? You've turned everyone against me." "I didn't turn anyone against you, Steve," I said, my voice steady. "You did that all on your own when you decided to cheat on me with my best friend." He slammed his fist on the counter, making me flinch. "Don't you dare bring Claudia into this." "Why not?" I shot back. "She's as much a part of this mess as you are." Steve's face contorted with anger. "This is exactly why I want a divorce. You're always playing the victim, never taking any responsibility for your part in this." I felt like I'd been slapped. My part? What part did I play in your decision to betray our marriage vows? "You were never there for me," Steve shouted. "Always too busy with the kids, with your hobbies, with everything but me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I was raising our children, Steve. Someone had to be there for them while you were working late nights and weekends." "Don't act like you're the only one who sacrificed," he spat. "I gave up my dreams to provide for this family." "And that gives you the right to throw it all away?" I asked, incredulous. Before Steve could respond, we heard a gasp from the doorway. Josie stood there, her eyes wide with shock and hurt. "Josie," Steve said, his voice softening. "Honey, I'm sorry. We didn't mean for you to hear that." Josie shook her head, backing away. "How could you say those things, Dad? How could you blame Mom for what you did?" Steve reached out to her, but she turned and ran upstairs. We heard her door slam shut. The fight seemed to drain out of Steve. He slumped against the counter, suddenly looking old and tired. "This is why I didn't want to involve the kids," he said quietly. I felt a surge of protective anger. "They're already involved, Steve. They're living this nightmare right along with us." He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Can't we try to make this work? For their sake?" For a moment, I almost wavered. Then I remembered the look on Josie's face, the pain in Jesse's eyes when he found out about the affair. "No," I said firmly. "We can't. It's too late for that." Steve's face hardened. "Fine. If that's how you want it, we'll do this the hard way. I'm calling my lawyer in the morning." As he turned to leave, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. "Steve," I called after him. He paused at the door, not turning around. "I want you out of the house by the end of the week," I said. "The kids and we need space to heal." Steve's shoulders slumped, but he nodded. Without another word, he left. I sank into a chair at the kitchen table, my mind racing. This was it. There was no going back now. We were really getting a divorce. I heard footsteps on the stairs and looked up to see Jesse and Josie standing in the doorway, holding hands. Their faces were a mix of fear and determination. "Mom?" Jesse said softly. "What happens now?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. "Now, we fight, for our family, for our future. It won't be easy, but we'll do it together." As I looked at my children's faces, I knew I had made the right decision. No matter what Steve or his parents or anyone else threw at us, We would face it as a team. And somehow, someway, we would come out stronger on the other side. The law office felt cold and impersonal as I sat across from my attorney, Sarah. She shuffled through a stack of papers, her face grim. "Laura, I won't sugarcoat this," she said. "Steve's playing hardball. He's going for full custody of the kids and wants to sell the house." My stomach dropped. "He can't do that, can he?" Sarah sighed. "He's claiming you're an unfit mother, citing your emotional instability since the separation." I felt the room spin. "Emotional instability? I'm not the one who threw away our marriage for an affair." "I know, Laura," Sarah said, her voice softening, "but we need to be prepared. This is going to be a tough fight." As I left the office, my phone buzzed. It was my new boss at the bakery. "Laura, I need you to come in. We're short-staffed." I glanced at my watch. Josie's parent-teacher conference was in an hour. "I can't. I have a commitment with my daughter." "Look," he said, his voice sharp. "I know you're going through a rough time, but I need reliable employees. If you can't make it, don't bother coming back." I felt tears pricking my eyes. "I'll be there," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I called Josie, my heart heavy. "Honey, I'm so sorry. I can't make the conference. Work emergency." The silence on the other end was deafening. "It's fine," Josie finally said, her voice flat. "Dad said he'd go anyway." My blood ran cold. "Your father's going?" "Yeah," Josie said. "He called this morning, said he wanted to be more involved." I ended the call, my mind racing. Steve hadn't been to a school event in years. Why now? With a sinking feeling, I realized this was part of his strategy. Painting himself as the involved parent while I was too busy working to show up. The bakery was chaos when I arrived. I threw myself into the work, trying to lose myself in the rhythm of kneading dough and decorating cakes. But my mind kept wandering to Josie, to Steve sitting in that conference, charming her teachers. As I was closing up, my phone rang again. It was Jesse. "Mom," he said, his voice tight with anger. "Dad's here. He's packing up his stuff. And he's taking some of our things, too." I felt a surge of panic. "What? Jesse, don't let him take anything of yours or Josie's." "I'm trying, Mom," Jesse said, his voice cracking. "But he says as long as he's paying child support, he has a right to it. He took your recipe book, the one with Grandma's beef stew recipe." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That book was my most prized possession, filled with generations of family recipes. "I'll be right there," I said, already running for my car. I broke every speed limit on the way home, my heart pounding. When I pulled into the driveway, Steve was loading boxes into his car. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I shouted, slamming my car door. Steve turned, his face a mask of cold determination. "Taking what's rightfully mine, Laura. You can't keep everything." I marched up to him, fury coursing through my veins. "Give me back my recipe book, now." He smirked, holding it just out of reach. "Oh, this old thing? I thought I'd give it to Claudia. She's always wanted to learn how to cook." Something inside me snapped. I lunged for the book, but Steve was quicker. He tossed it into his car and slammed the door shut. "You can't do this," I said, my voice breaking. "That's my family history, Steve. It's all I have left of my grandmother." For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I used to love in his eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by cold indifference. "You should have thought of that before you turned the kids against me," he said, getting into his car. As he drove away, I sank to my knees on the driveway, feeling utterly defeated. How had it come to this? How had the man I'd loved for 20 years become this stranger who seemed bent on destroying me? I felt a hand on my shoulder and looked up to see Jesse and Josie standing there, their faces a mix of anger and concern. "Mom," Jesse said softly, "what are we going to do?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stand. "We're going to fight," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Whatever it takes, we're going to fight." As we walked back into the house, I knew we were facing our toughest battle yet. But looking at my children, I also knew I had no choice but to win. For their sake and for mine. The phone rang, piercing the quiet of the kitchen. I glanced at the caller ID and froze. "Steve, hello," I answered, my voice wary. "Laura, we need to talk," Steve said, his tone uncharacteristically subdued. "Can we meet?" My heart raced. After weeks of bitter legal battles and emotional turmoil, what could he possibly want? "I don't think that's a good idea, Steve," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Please, Laura, it's important for the kids' sake." I closed my eyes, weighing my options. Finally, I agreed to meet him at a neutral location, the park where we used to take the kids when they were little. As I drove there, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, hurt, and a tiny, traitorous spark of hope that I couldn't quite extinguish. Steve was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. As I approached, he stood up, his eyes red-rimmed and tired. "Laura," he said, his voice cracking. "Thank you for coming." I sat down, maintaining a safe distance between us. "What do you want, Steve?" He took a deep breath. "I've made a terrible mistake. I want to come home. I want us to be a family again." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "What? Claudia and I, it's over," he continued. "It was never real. You and the kids, you're my real family. I was a fool to throw that away." I stared at him, speechless. Part of me wanted to laugh hysterically, while another part wanted to scream. "Steve," I finally managed, "you can't be serious. After everything you've done, everything you've put us through, you think you can just come back?" He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "I know I've hurt you, Laura. I know I've hurt the kids, but I want to make it right. I'll do anything. Therapy, whatever it takes." I stood up, needing to put physical distance between us. "And what about the custody battle? The house? My recipe book?" Steve had the grace to look ashamed. "I'll drop everything, the lawyers, the custody fight, all of it. I just want my family back." For a moment, I let myself imagine it, going back to our old life, pretending none of this had happened. But then I remembered the pain in Josie's eyes, the anger in Jesse's voice, the nights I'd spent crying myself to sleep. "No," I said, my voice firm. "No, Steve. We can't go back. You destroyed that the moment you chose Claudia over us." His face crumpled. "Laura, please. I love you. I love our children." "If you loved us," I said, feeling a strange calm wash over me, "you wouldn't have betrayed us in the first place." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Jessie. "Mom, where are you?" The bakery called. "They need you ASAP or you'll lose your job." Reality came crashing back. I had responsibilities, a life I'd built without Steve. I couldn't throw that away on a whim. "I have to go," I said, turning away. Steve grabbed my arm. "Laura, wait. Don't do this. Don't throw away 20 years of marriage." I yanked my arm free, fury rising in me. "I didn't throw it away, Steve. You did, and now you have to live with the consequences." As I walked away, Steve called after me, his voice desperate. "What about the kids? Don't they deserve a chance to have their family back?" I stopped, turning to face him one last time. Our kids deserve parents who respect themselves and each other. They deserve stability and love, not broken promises and shattered trust. With that, I got in my car and drove away, leaving Steve standing alone in the park where we'd once been happy. As I raced to the bakery, my mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Had I made the right choice? Was I denying my children a chance at having their father back? But then I remembered the strength I'd found in myself, the resilience I'd seen in Jessie and Josie. We'd been through hell, but we'd survived. We'd built a new life, a stronger family unit. I pulled into the bakery parking lot, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew one thing for certain: we would face them together, without Steve. Our family might be smaller now, but it was unbreakable. As I walked into the bakery, ready to fight for my job and our future, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. For the first time in months, I knew without a doubt that I had made the right decision. The day of Jessie's college graduation dawned bright and clear. As I stood in the kitchen preparing a special breakfast, I couldn't help but marvel at how far we'd come. The doorbell rang and my heart skipped a beat. I knew who it was. "I'll get it," Jessie called from the living room. I heard muffled voices, then Jesse appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face a mix of emotions. "Mom, Dad's here. He wants to talk to all of us." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Okay, let's hear what he has to say." We gathered in the living room, Josie perched on the arm of my chair, Jesse standing protectively nearby. Steve sat across from us, looking uncomfortable in his suit. "I know I have no right to be here," Steve began, his voice shaky, "but I couldn't miss Jesse's graduation. And I wanted to apologize to all of you." I felt Josie stiffen beside me while Jesse's face remained impassive. Steve continued, "I've been selfish and stupid. I threw away the best thing in my life for nothing. Claudia left me. My parents barely speak to me. I've lost everything." That's not our problem, Dad, Jesse said, his voice cold. You made your choices. Steve nodded, his eyes filling with tears. I know, and I'll regret those choices for the rest of my life. But I was hoping maybe we could start over? Be a family again? I felt a surge of anger, remembering all the pain we'd endured. But before I could speak, Josie stood up. A family, she said, her voice trembling. We are a family, Dad. Mom, Jesse, and me. We've been there for each other through everything. Where were you? Steve looked stricken. Josie, No, she interrupted. You don't get to walk back in here and pretend nothing happened. Do you have any idea what Mom's been through? How hard she's worked to keep us together? I reached for Josie's hand, squeezing it gently. It's okay, sweetie. But Jesse stepped forward, his face set. No, Mom. Josie's right. Dad needs to hear this. He turned to Steve, his voice steady. Mom's been working 2 jobs to make ends meet. She's been to every school event, every doctor's appointment, everything. She even learned to make Grandma's beef stew from memory when you took her recipe book. I felt tears prick my eyes at the memory of that small victory. Steve looked at me, his face a mask of shame. Laura, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, but then I remembered all we'd been through, all we'd overcome. I appreciate your apology, Steve, I said, my voice calm, but we can't go back. We've moved forward and we're stronger for it. Steve nodded, defeat etched in every line of his face. I understand. I hope someday you can forgive me. As he stood to leave, Jesse spoke up. Dad, I still want you at my graduation, but not as my father. As a guest who's watching from afar, seeing what he lost. Steve's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded. Thank you, Jesse. That's more than I deserve. After he left, we sat in silence for a moment. Then Josie turned to me, her eyes shining. Mom, I'm so proud of you. Of us. Jesse nodded, pulling us both into a hug. We made it, didn't we? I held my children close, feeling a wave of love and pride wash over me. Yes, we did, and we'll keep making it, every single day. Later, as we sat in the auditorium watching Jesse receive his diploma, I caught sight of Steve sitting several rows back. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw regret and longing in his gaze, but I felt no answering pull in my heart. Instead, I turned back to Josie, squeezing her hand as we cheered for Jesse. This was our family now, smaller perhaps, but stronger and more resilient than ever. As Jesse joined us after the ceremony, his face beaming with pride, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together. We had weathered the storm and come out stronger on the other side. So, Jesse said, grinning at us, who's ready for some celebratory beef stew? Josie and I laughed, linking arms with him as we headed out into the bright sunshine. Our future stretched before us, full of promise and hope, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that we were going to be just fine. The envelope trembled in my hands, its crisp white edges mocking me with their perfection. I stared at the return address, willing the name to change. It didn't. Josh Turner. My ex-fiancé? You gonna open that, or just glare it to death? Harris, my colleague, leaned against my office doorway, his salt and pepper hair catching the fluorescent light. I tossed the envelope onto my desk. It's probably just junk mail. Harris raised an eyebrow. Junk mail doesn't make you look like you've seen a ghost, Naomi. With a sigh, I tore open the envelope. A gilded card slipped out, adorned with flowing script. My stomach dropped as I read the words. Well, it's a wedding invitation, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Josh is getting married. Harris whistled low. That's rough. You okay? I nodded, not trusting my voice. As Harris retreated, giving me space, I forced myself to read the rest of the invitation. That's when I saw it. The bride's name, Laurel Burke. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone, dialing Josh's number before I could talk myself out of it. He answered on the third ring. Naomi? His voice was cautious, tinged with surprise. Why would your sister not attend her own sister's wedding? I demanded, skipping pleasantries. There was a pause. What are you talking about? The invitation, Josh. Your fiancée, Laurel Burke. Why does she have my last name? Oh. Another pause. She said you two were estranged sisters. That's why she didn't want to invite you, but I insisted. I gripped the phone tighter. We're not family. There's no past that binds us as sisters. Look, Naomi, I don't know what kind of family drama you've got going on, but there is no drama, Josh. I cut him off. I've never had a sister. Laurel is lying to you. Silence stretched between us. Then, I think you should talk to Laurel about this. Fine, I snapped. What's her number? Josh hesitated before rattling off a string of digits. I jotted them down, my handwriting barely legible. Naomi, Josh said softly. I'm sorry if this is bringing up stuff. I just thought you should know. I ended the call without responding, my fingers already dialing Laurel's number. It went straight to voicemail. Laurel, this is Naomi Burke. We need to talk about why you're telling people we're sisters. Call me back. I slammed the phone down, my mind reeling. Who was this woman, and why was she claiming to be my sister? More importantly, why was she marrying Josh? A knock at my door startled me. Harris was back, concern etched on his face. You look like you could use a drink. I nodded, grabbing my purse. As we walked to the elevator, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Laurel. Stay out of my life, Naomi. You've already ruined enough. I showed Harris the message, my hands shaking. I've never even met her. How could I have ruined anything? Harris's jaw tightened. Sounds like someone's playing games. Dangerous ones. As we stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Josh. Laurel's upset. Says you're trying to sabotage our wedding. What's going on? I stared at the message, my mind racing. What had I stumbled into? And how was I going to untangle this web of lies? The elevator doors opened, and Harris gently guided me out. Come on, he said. Let's figure this out over that drink. As we walked into the crisp evening air, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Something told me that Laurel Burke was about to turn my life upside down, and I had no idea how to stop her. The cafe bustled with the lunch crowd, but I barely noticed as I sat across from Josh, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of lukewarm coffee. His familiar face, once a source of comfort, now filled me with a mixture of anger and confusion. Naomi, I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this, Josh said, his tone dismissive. So what if Laurel says you're sisters? Why does it matter? I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. It matters because it's a lie, Josh. We're not family. There's no past that binds us as sisters. Josh's eyes narrowed. Are you sure about that? Maybe there's something you don't know. I think I'd know if I had a sister, I snapped. What I want to know is why Laurel is lying to you, and why you're so willing to believe her over me. He shrugged, a gesture that used to drive me crazy during our relationship. Laurel's been nothing but honest with me. Maybe you're the one who's confused. I felt my temper rising. Confused? Josh, I'm telling you the truth. Laurel and I are not related. Why can't you see that she's manipulating you? The way I see it, Josh said, leaning back in his chair, you're just jealous. You can't stand the fact that I've moved on and found someone better. His words hit me like a slap. Better? You think a liar is better? At least she's not constantly nagging me about my career, Josh retorted. Unlike you, Laurel supports my music. I laughed bitterly. Your music? Josh, when was the last time you even picked up a guitar? You gave up on your dreams years ago. His face flushed with anger. You don't know anything about my life anymore, Naomi. Laurel believes in me. She's helping me get back into the scene. And let me guess, she's funding your comeback too? I asked, suddenly seeing the situation with painful clarity. Josh's silence was all the confirmation I needed. God, Josh, I said, shaking my head. Can't you see what's happening? She's using you, just like she's using my name. You're wrong, he insisted, but I could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Laurel loves me. She wouldn't lie to me. Then explain why she's pretending to be my sister, I challenged. Ask her about her family, her childhood. I bet she can't give you a straight answer. Josh's phone buzzed and he glanced at it. His face paled slightly. I have to go, he said abruptly, standing up. Laurel's waiting for me. As he turned to leave, I called out, Josh, wait. Just be careful, okay? Something's not right here. He paused, looking back at me with a mixture of emotions I couldn't quite decipher. I'll talk to Laurel, he said finally. But I think you're the one who needs to be careful, Naomi. Don't make accusations you can't back up. I watched him walk away, my mind reeling. As I gathered my things to leave, my phone chimed with a text. It was from Laurel. Stay away from Josh. You had your chance. He's mine now, and I won't let you ruin this for me. A chill ran down my spine. I quickly dialed Harris's number, needing to hear a friendly voice. Harris, it's Naomi. Can you meet me? I think I'm in trouble. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just opened Pandora's box. Laurel's threat echoed in my mind, and I realized with growing dread that this was far from over. Whatever game Laurel was playing, it was clear she saw me as a threat, and I had a sinking feeling that she wouldn't stop until one of us was destroyed. I paced the length of Harris's office, my heels clicking against the polished floor. Harris watched me from behind his desk, concern etched on his face. "Naomi, you need to slow down and tell me exactly what happened," he said, his voice steady and calming. I took a deep breath and sank into the chair across from him. "It's Laurel. She's threatening me, Harris. And Josh, he's completely under her spell." Harris leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "Start from the beginning." I recounted my confrontation with Josh, Laurel's text, and the growing sense of dread in the pit of my stomach. As I spoke, Harris's expression darkened. "Laurel's always brought chaos wherever she goes," he muttered. I blinked in surprise. "You know her?" Harris nodded grimly. "We crossed paths a few years ago. She was working as a temp in our legal department. Left quite an impression, and not a good one." "What happened?" I asked, my curiosity piqued. "Let's just say she has a talent for manipulating people and situations to her advantage," Harris replied. "She nearly cost us a major client with her schemes." I felt a chill run down my spine. And now she's set her sights on me. But why? What could she possibly gain by pretending to be my sister? Harris's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of concern and determination. "I don't know, but we're going to find out. Naomi, I think it's time you cut ties with Josh and this whole situation. It's not safe." I shook my head. "I can't, Harris. If I walk away now, who knows what Laurel might do? She could ruin my reputation, my career." "We won't let that happen," Harris assured me, reaching across the desk to squeeze my hand. The gesture sent a flutter through my chest, catching me off guard. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I know your secret, Naomi. Meet me at Riverside Park at 7 p.m. if you don't want Josh to find out." My hand shook as I showed Harris the message. "What secret?" I whispered, panic rising in my throat. "I don't have any secrets." Harris's jaw clenched. "It's a bluff. She's trying to scare you." "Well, it's working," I admitted. "What should I do?" "We'll go together," Harris said firmly. "I'm not letting you face this alone." As evening fell, Harris and I made our way to Riverside Park. The setting sun cast long shadows across the grass, and a cool breeze rustled the leaves. We found a bench with a clear view of the surrounding area and sat down to wait. At precisely 7 p.m., a figure emerged from the shadows. Laurel. She walked towards us, her face a mask of cool confidence. I said, "Come alone," she sneered, eyeing Harris. "Whatever you have to say to me, you can say in front of Harris," I replied, grateful for his solid presence beside me. Laurel's eyes narrowed. "Fine. Have it your way." She turned to me, her voice dripping with venom. "I know about the money, Naomi, the funds you embezzled from your last job to pay for your mother's rehab." I felt the blood drain from my face. How could she possibly know about that? I'd gone to great lengths to keep it hidden, even from Josh. Harris's hand found mine, squeezing it reassuringly. "That's a serious accusation, Laurel. I hope you have proof to back it up." Laurel smirked. "Oh, I do. And unless Naomi wants it splashed all over the internet, she'll do exactly as I say." I stood up, my legs shaking, but my voice steady. "What do you want from me, Laurel?" Her eyes glittered with malice. "I want you to disappear. Leave town, quit your job, and never contact Josh again. If you do, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." As Laurel's ultimatum hung in the air, I realized with growing horror that my past had finally caught up with me, and now it threatened to destroy everything I'd worked so hard to build. The church bells chimed as Harris and I approached the ornate doors. My stomach churned with a mixture of dread and determination. I smoothed my navy blue dress, a stark contrast to the sea of pastels surrounding us. "You don't have to do this," Harris murmured, his hand a comforting presence on my lower back. I took a deep breath. "Yes, I do. I need answers." We slipped into the back pew just as the wedding march began. Heads turned, curious whispers rippling through the crowd at our late arrival. I ignored them, my eyes fixed on Josh at the altar. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his cufflinks. Then Laurel appeared, a vision in white. Her eyes locked with mine for a brief moment, a flash of triumph in her gaze. I clenched my fists, willing myself to stay calm. The ceremony was a blur of words and rituals. I barely registered the vows, too focused on the way Josh's hands trembled as he slipped the ring onto Laurel's finger. Did he have doubts? Or was I projecting my own unresolved feelings? As the newlyweds made their way down the aisle, Laurel's arm looped possessively through Josh's. I felt a sudden wave of clarity. This wasn't about Josh anymore. It was about uncovering the truth behind Laurel's lies. At the reception, Harris and I kept to ourselves, observing from a corner table. Laurel flitted from guest to guest, her laughter tinkling like shattered glass. Harris muttered, "Watch how she works the room." I nodded, noticing how Laurel subtly guided conversations, always keeping herself at the center of attention. She's been planning this for a long time. Suddenly, Josh appeared at our table, his face flushed from champagne. "Naomi, I'm glad you came," he said, his words slightly slurred. "Can we talk? Alone?" I glanced at Harris, who gave me a reassuring nod. 5 minutes, I told Josh, following him to a quiet alcove. "Why are you really here?" Josh asked, his eyes searching mine. "I could ask you the same thing," I retorted. "Are you happy, Josh? Really happy?" He hesitated, and in that moment I saw a flicker of the man I once loved. I don't know, Laurel, she's intense. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning." "Then why marry her?" I pressed. Josh's expression hardened. "Because she believes in me. She supports my music, unlike you." I laughed bitterly. "Is that what she told you? Josh, I always supported your dreams. It was you who gave up." Before he could respond, Laurel's voice cut through the air. "There you are, darling." She sidled up to Josh, her eyes cold as she regarded me. "Naomi, I'm so glad you could make it. It means so much to have my long-lost sister here." I bristled at her words. "Cut the act, Laurel. We both know we're not sisters." Laurel's smile never wavered. "Oh, Naomi, always so dramatic. Perhaps it's time I shared some family photos with our guests. I'm sure they'd love to see us growing up together." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. "I have quite the collection. It's amazing what you can do with Photoshop these days." As she sauntered away, Josh in tow, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Laurel wasn't just lying, she was creating an entire false history. I rushed back to Harris, my mind reeling. "We need to leave. Now." "What happened?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Laurel's gone too far," I said, my voice shaking. "She's fabricating evidence of our supposed sisterhood. If those photos get out, my reputation, my career, everything could be ruined." Harris stood, his jaw set. "Then we fight back. It's time to uncover who Laurel really is and why she's doing this." As we left the reception, I felt a strange mix of fear and resolve. Laurel had raised the stakes, but she'd also made a critical mistake. In her attempt to trap me, she'd given me the push I needed to dig deeper into her past. "Thanks for opening my eyes, Josh," I muttered as we drove away. "You've done me a favor." The battle lines were drawn. It was time to take control of my narrative and expose Laurel's web of lies, no matter the cost. The reception hall buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but all I could focus on was Laurel's venomous glare from across the room. Harris squeezed my hand reassuringly as we made our way to a quiet corner. "We need to leave," I whispered urgently. "Laurel's threatening to release doctored photos of us as sisters. If those get out, my whole life could unravel." Before Harris could respond, Laurel materialized beside us, her white gown rustling ominously. "Enjoying the party, dear sister," she sneered. I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. "Drop the act, Laurel. We both know the truth." Her eyes narrowed. "Do we? Because I have a lifetime of memories that say otherwise. Memories I'm more than happy to share with everyone here." "You're bluffing," I challenged, but my voice wavered. Laurel's laugh was cold and brittle. "Am I? Let's find out." She turned to address the room, raising her voice. "Everyone, I have a special treat. Childhood photos of my sister Naomi and me." Panic surged through me as Laurel produced a tablet from seemingly nowhere. I lunged for it, but she danced away, tapping the screen with a triumphant smirk. The room fell silent as images flickered to life on the large projection screen. There we were, Laurel and I, smiling arm in arm at a beach, blowing out birthday candles together, posing in matching school uniforms. My heart raced as I recognized backgrounds from my own childhood photos, seamlessly altered to include Laurel. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt the weight of judgmental stares, the silent accusations of deceit. Even Harris looked confused, his brow furrowed as he glanced between me and the screen. "Isn't this lovely?" Laurel cooed, her voice dripping with false sweetness. So many precious memories. I couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to close in as the magnitude of Laurel's deception hit me. She hadn't just fabricated our relationship, she'd rewritten my entire history. "That's enough." Harris's voice cut through the chaos. He strode to the front of the room, unplugging the projector. "This is a wedding, not a slideshow. Let's get back to celebrating the happy couple." As the guests reluctantly dispersed, Laurel cornered me, her eyes blazing. "Why are you doing this?" I hissed. "What could you possibly gain?" For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing a depth of pain and anger I hadn't expected. "You have everything," she spat. "The career, the respect, the man who loves you. I'm just taking what should have been mine." Before I could respond, Josh appeared, looking bewildered. "Laurel, what's going on? Why is Naomi upset?" Laurel's demeanor instantly changed, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Josh, Naomi's trying to ruin our special day. She's always been jealous of our relationship." I watched in disbelief as Josh comforted her, shooting me an accusatory glance. The injustice of it all hit me like a physical blow. Why did I ever think Josh's approval mattered? I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. Harris was at my side in an instant, his presence a steadying force. "Naomi, we need to go. This isn't healthy for you." As we turned to leave, Laurel's composure cracked entirely. She lunged at me, tears streaming down her face. "You can't leave. You can't abandon me again." Security intervened, holding Laurel back as she sobbed hysterically. The raw anguish in her voice made me pause. There was something more here, a deeper pain driving her actions. In that moment, I made a decision. I couldn't run from this. Whatever twisted game Laurel was playing, whatever wounds from her past were fueling this obsession, I needed to understand, for my own sake and maybe for hers too. I turned to Harris, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I can't walk away. Not yet. There's more to this story, and I need to uncover the truth." Harris nodded, his eyes filled with concern and something deeper. Admiration, perhaps? "Then we'll face it together. Whatever comes next, you're not alone in this." As we left the chaos of the reception behind, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Laurel's breakdown had revealed the depths of her instability, but also hinted at a shared pain I couldn't ignore. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The web of lies surrounding us was about to unravel, and I had to be ready for whatever truths lay beneath. The days following Laurel's wedding meltdown blurred together in a haze of anxiety and sleepless nights. I couldn't shake the image of her tear-stained face, the raw anguish in her voice, as she accused me of abandoning her. It didn't make sense, but I knew there was a missing piece to this puzzle. Harris had been my rock through it all, a steady presence as we dug deeper into Laurel's past. We'd discovered she'd changed her name several times, leaving a trail of broken relationships and financial disasters in her wake. But why was she so fixated on me? As I pored over another stack of documents in Harris's office, my phone buzzed. Josh's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Naomi, I need to see you." His voice was urgent, tinged with fear. "It's about Laurel. Please, I don't know who else to turn to." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a nearby park. Harris insisted on coming with me, his protective instincts on high alert. Josh was already there when we arrived, pacing nervously. He looked haggard, nothing like the confident man I'd once loved. "What's going on, Josh?" I asked, keeping my distance. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Laurel's gone off the deep end. She's been ranting about you, about how you stole her life. I found plans in her notebook, detailed plans about ruining your career, your reputation. She's obsessed, Naomi." My blood ran cold. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I finally realized how wrong I've been," Josh's voice cracked. "About everything. About you. About Laurel. I've been such a fool." As he spoke, memories flooded back. The constant criticism, the subtle put-downs, the way he'd slowly chipped away at my self-esteem during our relationship. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Josh, but at myself for allowing it for so long. "It's easier to promise the moon when you're cornered, isn't it, Josh?" I said bitterly. He flinched at my words. "I know I hurt you, Naomi. I was selfish and manipulative. But please, you have to believe me about Laurel. She's dangerous." Before I could respond, Harris stepped forward. We appreciate the warning, Josh, but I think it's time you step back and let Naomi move on with her life. Josh's eyes widened as he looked between us, realization dawning. You two are... together? Harris finished, taking my hand. And I won't let anyone hurt Naomi again. Not Laurel, and not you. As we turned to leave, Josh called out desperately, I still love you, Naomi. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me another chance. I froze, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Part of me, the part that still ached from our shared history, wanted to believe him. But as I looked at Harris, steady and supportive beside me, I knew what I had to do. No, Josh, I said firmly. What we had is over. I've moved on, and it's time you did too. We walked away, leaving Josh standing alone in the fading sunlight. As we reached the car, my phone chimed with a text. Unknown number. I warned you to stay away, sister dear. Now you'll pay. Check your email. With shaking hands, I opened my inbox. There, sent to everyone in my contact list, including my boss and colleagues, were documents detailing the embezzlement from my previous job, the secret I'd buried so deeply, the mistake I'd made out of desperation to help my mother. Oh God, I whispered, showing Harris the screen. She's ruined everything. Harris pulled me close. We'll fight this, Naomi. Together. I promise you, we'll find a way through. But as the weight of Laurel's revenge settled over me, I couldn't help but wonder if this was a battle I could win. My career, my reputation, my future, everything I'd worked so hard for was crumbling around me. And somewhere out there, Laurel was watching, reveling in the chaos she'd created. The final showdown was coming, and I knew that only one of us would be left standing when the dust settled. The world around me crumbled as I stared at my phone, Laurel's vengeful email burning into my retinas. My career, my reputation, everything I'd worked so hard for was in jeopardy. Harris's arm around my shoulders felt like the only thing keeping me from collapsing. We need to get ahead of this, Harris said, his voice steady despite the storm raging around us. Let's go to your office. We'll talk to HR, explain the situation. I nodded numbly, allowing him to guide me to the car. The drive to the office was a blur, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. As we stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed again. Josh. Naomi, please, I need to see you. It's urgent. I showed Harris the message, my hand trembling. What should I do? He frowned. It could be a trap. Laurel might be using him to get to you. Or he might have information that could help, I countered, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. I need to know, Harris. I need to end this. Reluctantly, he agreed, and we arranged to meet Josh at a nearby coffee shop. When we arrived, Josh was already there, looking haggard and desperate. Naomi, thank God, he said, standing as we approached. Laurel's gone. She emptied our accounts and disappeared, I think she might be coming for you. My blood ran cold. What do you mean, coming for me? Josh's eyes darted nervously around the cafe. I found her journals. She's been planning this for years, Naomi. The wedding, the fake sisterhood, it was all part of some twisted revenge plot. She blames you for something that happened in her past, something about her real sister. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. The temp job, I whispered. 5 years ago, I was on the hiring committee. We didn't choose her sister for a position. She was devastated. And now she's out to destroy you, Harris finished, his jaw clenched. Josh nodded miserably. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I should have seen through her lies. I was weak and I let her manipulate me. But I want to make it right. Please, let me help you stop her. For a moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I once loved. Vulnerable, sincere. But as I looked at Harris, steady and supportive beside me, I knew there was no going back. I appreciate the warning, Josh, I said softly. But this isn't your fight anymore. Please forget about me, forever. It's time we both moved on. The hurt in his eyes was palpable, but I stood firm. As Josh left, shoulders slumped in defeat, I turned to Harris. We need to find Laurel before she does any more damage. Just then, my phone chimed with a new email. My breath caught as I read the subject line, Your mother says hello, sister dear. With shaking hands, I opened the message. There was a photo of my estranged mother, Grace, bound and gagged in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. The message below chilled me to the bone. Time to face your past, Naomi. Come alone to the address below, or Mommy Dearest pays the price for your sins. I showed Harris the screen, my mind reeling. She has my mother. I have to go. Harris gripped my shoulders, his eyes intense. Not alone. We'll call the police. No, I cut him off. You don't know Laurel. She'll hurt my mother if I don't play by her rules. I have to do this myself. Naomi, please, Harris pleaded. Let me help you. We can face this together. I cupped his face in my hands, memorizing every line and curve. I love you, Harris, but this is my battle to fight. I need to end this once and for all. Before he could protest further, I turned and ran, hailing a taxi and leaving Harris behind. As the city blurred past the windows, I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. Laurel had taken everything from me, my past, my present, and now she threatened my future. But I was done being a victim. It was time to reclaim my life, no matter the cost. The taxi pulled up to a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of town. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out, ready to face my tormentor and end this nightmare once and for all. The warehouse loomed before me, a hulking shadow against the twilight sky. My heart raced as I pushed open the rusted door, stepping into the gloom. Laurel? I called out, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. I'm here. Let my mother go. A chilling laugh rang out, and Laurel emerged from the shadows, her eyes wild with a manic gleam. Behind her I saw my mother, Grace, bound to a chair, fear etched across her face. Welcome home, sister? Laurel sneered. Ready to pay for what you've done? Laurel, please, I pleaded, inching closer. Whatever happened in the past, we can talk about it. Just let my mother go. She laughed bitterly. Talk? Like you talked to my sister before crushing her dreams? Do you even remember her, Naomi? Sarah Jacobs, the girl you rejected for that job 5 years ago? The memory hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, a bright-eyed candidate, devastated by our decision. I'm sorry. We had no idea. Sorry doesn't cut it, Laurel screamed, brandishing a gun. Sarah killed herself because of you, and now you're going to feel that same pain. Time seemed to slow as Laurel turned the gun towards my mother. Without thinking, I lunged forward, tackling Laurel to the ground. We grappled fiercely, the gun between us. A deafening bang echoed through the warehouse. For a moment, everything was still. Then warmth spread across my side. I looked down to see crimson blooming on my shirt. No! Laurel's anguished cry pierced the air. She scrambled back, the gun clattering to the floor. I didn't mean. Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open. Harris rushed in, followed by police officers. Naomi! He cried, racing to my side. As the officers subdued Laurel, Harris cradled me in his arms. Stay with me, love, he whispered, pressing his hand to my wound. Help is coming. Through the haze of pain, I saw my mother being untied, tears streaming down her face. Naomi, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. For everything. I reached out, grasping her hand. It's okay, Mom. We'll make it right. As paramedics swarmed around us, I locked eyes with Laurel one last time. The hatred in her gaze had melted away, replaced by a look of shocked remorse. In that moment, I saw not a monster, but a broken woman consumed by grief. I forgive you, I whispered, not sure if she could hear me. But I needed to say it. For her, for Sarah, and for myself. The world faded to black as I was lifted onto a stretcher. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital room, Harris dozing in a chair beside me. Sunlight streamed through the window, a new day dawning. As Harris stirred, his eyes lighting up at seeing me awake, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. I've finally seen the light, I murmured, squeezing his hand. All thanks to you. He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. We made it through together, he said softly, and we'll face whatever comes next the same way. In the days that followed, as I recovered and the legal proceedings against Laurel began, I found myself reflecting on the tangled web that had brought us all to this point. Josh, humbled by his mistakes, reached out to make amends before moving across the country for a fresh start. My mother and I began the slow process of rebuilding our relationship, years of misunderstandings finally being addressed. And Laurel, facing the consequences of her actions, started the long journey towards healing and redemption. I visited her once before the trial, offering forgiveness and encouraging her to seek help. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, for both of us. As Harris and I stood on the balcony of our new apartment, watching the sun set on another day, I felt a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in years. The shadows of the past were finally receding, making way for a brighter future. Ready for our new beginning? Harris asked, wrapping his arms around me. I smiled, leaning into his embrace. More than ready. It's time to write our own story, together. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. The web of shadows had been untangled, and in its place, a tapestry of love, forgiveness, and second chances was being woven. At last, I was truly home.